Well, now we're live.
Great.
Yes.
What is happening? I've always wanted to be able to start an event like that, and now I can.
Yes. What is happening?
Now I'm finally
all
allowed
of the problems happened.
Yeah. You've trademarked it, but like right now I get to use it. So we are here for Star Wars, The Last Jedi, The Debate. And I am here with Nicholas Peter Pollack and Chris Paul Towers, here to attack and defend the proposition that The Last Jedi is the third best Star Wars movie of all time. And my name is Ellen Adair, and I am the moderator for this afternoon's debate because I have seen every Star Wars movie once, but not more than once. And so I am the rare human being who enjoys the Star Wars franchise, but doesn't have incredibly strong feelings about it. I was not raised on Star Wars, as many people were. So the thought is I can bring a little bit of objectivity to this. And despite being an anxious over-preparer by nature, I did not rewatch this film for this on purpose. That was the request. So you're welcome, and also apologies.
One thing I will say is we might both be attacking the proposition that it's the third best.
Great.
Well, might be the second best.
Oh, man. We saw that on Twitter. We saw people actually pushing number 2, and that's just... Don't push it today, Towers, okay? I mean, this is already an egregious offense. And it's very weird for me, honestly, to be so negative for a change. And it's more out of respect for the other films that I am here today saying this.
So this is the thing, though.
Yeah.
How many Star Wars movies are actually good?
Okay. So hold on. Okay, we're gonna have
process
here.
You don't think The Last Jedi is?
Well, okay.
Then you definitely don't need a second hand.
I have written terrible notes, and this was actually just on The Last Jedi. I had one for The Force Awakens too, because I feel like that's actually a very important part of the failure that is The Last Jedi that I lost. So that's really cool. But before we begin, I want this to be. The process needs to be right. Okay. This could very easily be just 2-3 hours of us just shouting back at each other. Yeah.
Are you saying that's not what it's going to be?
Maybe, but let's try to not make it that at first. By the way, I don't think anyone has heard any of us scream. I mean, you have, of course, but like from a genuine scream.
I've screamed as other people.
Right, yeah. But not yourself, and not at a ball game or something.
Oh, right. Maybe.
I did karaoke last week.
Right.
And it was I did Vindicated by Dashboard Confessional, so I really had to get into it.
Yeah, sure. But what I mean is like the actual anger and frustration screaming. And there might be some value to actually like bring that out of you today.
I'm trying to think what the last time.
Yeah, right. I don't know when I did. Anyway, so we're going to have a due process here. We're going to have a real good thing. I think opening statements are in order.
I agree.
Okay.
And Chris, would you like to start?
Yeah, do you have something prepared, like an actual script?
Maybe.
I've got notes.
I have notes.
I watched it last. So
it's all here.
What I'll start with,
It's been here for 8 years or whatever. This movie.
I rewatched the movie last night.
Yeah.
And when I talk about this, I've talked about this movie on Twitter a lot. That's how this started. It's like I get more angry replies when I say I like this movie than like anything else, like vaccine policy, like real hot button issues, but it's like, I like Star Wars The Last Jedi. No, you don't.
You don't. You don't know what you like.
But
Sorry, I'm interrupting your opening statement. This is so rude of me.
Please, order.
Clearly someone wasn't in debate in high school.
No, I was not. Wow, amazing.
So yeah,
Are you saying that you were in debate?
I was in debate. I wasn't good. I was really, really terrified of public speaking up until... I guess like once I started doing this job and I had to get over it.
Right.
But like, yeah. So I was really bad. But anyway, every time I talk about this movie, I'm like, yeah, I think it's the third best movie, but I understand why people don't like it. And I always but then like when I'm actually watching the movie, I've got my notes and it's probably like 3 pages in a Google Doc. And I've got just regular notes, just general things that I'd noticed. Then I have a list of good things about it and a list of bad things about it. The list of bad things is just not that long for me.
Wow.
Because I really love this movie. I genuinely it's not like a bit. It's not like being contrarian, when I walked out of that movie, there were like several moments where I was like, I need to go see this movie again. And I went and saw it the next day, and I loved it even more. And so I think, I guess the ways I would start would just be to talk about the things that I think are, on a certain level, obviously there's subjectivity to everything. But there are things that I think are generally true about this movie and the things that I like about it. And so obviously anyone can disagree if they want, but I think generally speaking, it is the most well-crafted Star Wars movie. Just in terms of the craft of the movie itself, the way it looks, the way it's the screen, the script, regardless of like whether you dislike specific plot points, I think just the things that the people say, the way they say them, the way the film is made, the way the film looks. I think it's just an incredibly well-crafted movie. It has, in my opinion, 3 sequences that are up there with anything in the entire series when it comes to just like, can I curse?
No.
Holy crap. That was stunning. And so,
you should know better, Chris.
It is, and I'm never sure because like on CBS, I definitely can't.
No. Yeah.
I think there's been one curse word said on Fantasy Baseball today, and it was by Al Melchior.
Ow.
Like 8 years ago.
Get
and
outta here.
we died. It was just so
he's the
surprising.
sweetest, nicest guy. That's
it was
amazing.
It was so good. So I know I can't, but anytime I'm on someone else's podcast, I'm like,
I mean, come on, Chris.
I use the good place replacements.
okay,
Oh,
yeah.
that's
so that I
wonderful.
can still have like the emotional emphasis of getting to have a swear word.
So holy shirt.
Yes.
And so the 3 things that really stand out to me, and these were immediately on the first watch, are 1, the Holdo maneuver, the scene when she flies the ship into the Star Destroyer.
Oh, yeah.
Just whatever you think of the physics of it and all that. Just the way it is shot. The
Sure.
way she jumps into light speed and the sound cuts out. And you get this like... It's weird because you don't get a lot of things like Star Wars is a very real, like, this is a dumb thing to say about a movie about like space wizards, but a very realistic movie. Like in the way it's shot, you don't get a lot of like you have Luke in the cave on Dagobah, but other than that, most of the things you see are what happened. The way it's shot, but this is very like you see Snoke's dreadnought, but then you see like different little versions of it strewn throughout the screen, and it's really like it's very striking. It's almost like it almost cuts to black and white a little bit, and this like when I saw it for the first time, I was just like, wow.
You're talking about the Star Destroyers.
Yes.
That get blown up too. Not like interpretations of Snoke's ship.
Oh, is that what's going on?
Yeah.
I thought
She blew through all of the Star Destroyers and the ship.
Oh.
Yeah, not a point in your favor if you ask me, but we'll get to that later.
See, no, I okay, maybe. I always
Yeah.
interpreted it as okay, maybe. The second one is right around the same time, the throne room scene. Just unbelievably striking. The sharp red of the background, the Praetorian Guard, Snoke's like amazing gold robe.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
he's just
that's
lounging
a
around
gorgeous
in.
thing. Absolutely.
And just the whole scene, the lead up to it, when Snoke thinks that Kylo's gonna kill Rey, but Kylo's actually gonna kill him, and all that. Just Andy Serkis
Right, he's
giving.
He's describing, the
Yeah, he's
feeling he thinks
accurately
it's actually
describing,
doing it to
yeah.
Rey, but he's really doing
Yeah,
it to Snoke.
it's
Sure.
the way that's set up is
Uh-huh.
amazing, but then the fight itself with the Praetorian Guards and their like shiny red suits and all their different weird like whip knives and shit.
Yeah.
I did it. Sorry.
Oh, well, you did the thing.
Man.
You did the thing. I'm so disappointed in you. I
See,
gotta write this down.
That's why
I'm so sorry to everybody I've offended. By cursing on this live stream. The FCC will be in contact with you.
That's why I should have asked for forgiveness rather than permission.
Oh man! If you say another, you automatically lose this debate, Chris.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think so.
He's maybe already
I'm a
conceded,
guest in your
folks.
home.
This is true.
So,
yeah,
like,
this is the
I'm-
pictureless studio we're doing this from.
So I believe you had a third point.
Yes, the third
Yes.
scene. Right.
And then the crate sequence is just I love the way the salt planet, all the red kicks up, and you get like these really interesting like different things that they do about it, especially when Luke comes out at the end, and you're led to believe that he's really there, but there are these tiny little hints that he's not. Like when he's stepping on the sand and he moves, there's no footprints, and they make like a real point to like when Kylo's moving, you see the sand moving.
Sure.
When like just that the way that's shot, I think it's just like stylish in a way that Star Wars films haven't really been. And I think the one other movie that I do think it shares a lot with it is the Empire Strikes Back, which I think is the best Star Wars movie by far. I think like just in terms of the way it's made, the way it's written, Lawrence Kasdan's script is incredible. I get like very emotional anytime Yoda's on the scene in that, just because the writing is incredible.
Mhm.
Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. It's just like that sounds like Shakespeare. It
Yeah.
doesn't sound like Star Wars.
Right.
And
What
so
is, just so that everybody's clear, what is the hypothetical number 2? I know you think this film might even
It's
be
gotta
number 2.
be.
it's
but
either
just-
A New Hope
Yeah.
or The Last Jedi.
Gotta be.
Like
Yeah.
A New Hope,
I mean, yeah, you see either or because they're both ahead of the Last Jedi.
when you put A New Hope up against it, where A New Hope I think falls short is it is very amateurishly made.
Mhm.
Like Mark Hamill is not good in A New Hope at acting, which makes sense. He's super young. It's one of his first roles ever. Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford are awesome immediately, but Mark Hamill is a work in progress. And you can see kind of the seams on the movie. You can see that they shot it on a pretty small budget, relatively speaking, compared to the other movies. But like, it's just so fun. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's magical. It's this
yeah.
new thing that is just established itself that no one had done at the time.
The when Han Solo answers the comms as a stormtrooper, and they're like,
Yeah.
"What's going on there?" Everything's fine.
Just fine.
How are you?
Yeah.
Just like unbelievable.
It's great.
So that has that going for it. But I think in terms of the craft of the movie, and whether you like the movie or you don't, whether you think that the specific scenes that I'm talking about make sense, I just think the way it's shot, the way it's presented, I think it stands far ahead of most other Star Wars movies. I think Jedi is probably the only other one, and I think to a certain extent that's George Lucas didn't direct or write that one, so I think that helps. I love his universe, love the world he created. Not the best screenwriter, not the best.
Yeah, we saw what happened when he gets full control, and that's what
Yes.
the prequels are.
I want to
And-
say, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Continue. No, I was just going to say, I appreciate this point about the visual feast of The Last Jedi, because certainly from the one time that I saw it in the theaters, one of the things that I remember very strongly is that fight on the
Yeah.
planet with the
was
white
gorgeous.
and the red.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I did not see the original Star Wars trilogy. I grew up without a television. I did not see it until after I had seen Episode 1.
Okay.
And I was like, I should go back and watch the original
Maybe
Star
to
Wars.
find out why people like it.
Right, yes, a little bit. I mean, yeah, there was Ewan McGregor in Episode 1, which did a lot for me at that time in my life. But
I mean, it still does for me.
it still
He's a
actually
wonderful
does. It's
man.
true.
He's
So anyway, when I watched the original trilogy, I thought this is obviously better, but kind of dingy,
Yeah.
right? In comparison for the cinematic feast
yeah.
of it. So your point that the Last Jedi is really just like a visual banquet is well taken.
And to add on to that, I think it might be the best Star Wars creature movie, just in terms of the various like we'll get into the Canto Bight of it all.
Yeah, we will.
But the character designs in that. The little drunk dude
Sure,
who's
filling in the
it's
coins with
amazing.
BB-8. Yeah, that was fun.
The Fathiers are really cool looking.
Would you like to describe what those are for those who are not familiar with
Please.
what that is?
They're like 20-foot tall, like horse cats.
Oh, right, the alien horses.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a very important question that was
Yes.
actually one of the most strongly burning questions for me coming into this event, which is this the movie where there's like the little penguin creatures.
Yes.
Oh, and the porgs are
the porgs. That's what the Chewie
so
takes
good.
one on, is about to eat one, and then they all look at him so innocently, and then he doesn't eat the fried porg. Yes.
So this is my long list of good for the movie.
It just keeps scrolling.
And just the word porgs shows up about 5 times.
Sure.
It's basically any time they're on screen. I'm just like, I love these little things.
They're great. I mean,
Amazing.
I think again, even from my relatively objective point of view, I think that the creatures are some of the best part of the Star Wars universe
Absolutely.
in general. So having also excellent creatures in this movie is another point in its favor.
There's the weird like walrus thing that Luke is getting the blue milk from early on. That is, I love that scene.
That's interesting.
Just.
I mean, I like the fact that they didn't use CGI for this stuff. It's kind of a Star Wars thing. They introduced them in the prequels and everything. We all got upset, and it's all actual.
It's a lot of. That's one thing that the sequel trilogy has is they did a lot of.
Save for the alien horses.
I mean, you probably can't really do.
Yeah. Well, no, you can't. Obviously, with that kind of scene, which shouldn't exist in the first place, but that's another story.
I guess would be like the closest real life animal.
We don't want to actually do that to them.
Work.
I would much rather have. Yeah.
But no, so I think just like the component parts, without getting into like, I know the plot of the movie is controversial and some of the characterizations, but I just think the things that make up the movie, I think are, again, subjectivity is like everybody likes what they like. You can't account for taste, but I think generally speaking, it is in many ways arguably the most well-made Star Wars movie.
Okay.
And I think the script is incredible. The only 2 people who should be allowed to write Yoda dialogue, because they're going to bring Yoda back. We know that he's 900 years old, so they just announced a Star Wars video game that takes place 200 years in the past from the story, not from our past. It would be even longer ago than that. And Yoda's there, because, sure, he's 900 years old. The Yoda scene in this movie, I know some people don't like it because of the potential meta commentary about the story itself and the fandom and but just the way it's written. I get emotional every time. That's one of the things that I think the prequels really fail is like Yoda sucks in the prequels.
Sure,
He's just a disaster. And in Empire and in The Last Jedi, the Yoda stuff is just magical. Like the
tree burning, the burning of the sacred text scene is what you're looking for, with Yoda pretty much saying, "Come on, find your way."
Yeah, like, "Oh, Skywalker, missed you, I have," and then he kind of gives his little chuckle, and then Skywalker still looking to the horizon, never here, now to the need in front of your nose. Just like the way strength, mastery, but also weakness, folly, yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher failure is. We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters. Like that is just like incredible writing. So yeah, I think the script itself, the way it's shot, the way it looks are all just, in my opinion, sort of unimpeachable. Like it looks amazing. And I think you can say, to a certain extent, a lot of the same things about The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker. Those are really cool looking movies. That's what J.J. Abrams does. He makes really cool looking things.
Absolutely.
It's perhaps the main thing.
Yeah, right.
Casting. I will say this. He is has an incredible eye for talent. Like his casting is always on point. I think he kind of makes movie-length trailers in a lot of ways, and that's what The Force Awakens was and needed to be, I think.
Right.
But The Rise of Skywalker, what you think The Last Jedi
this is not about
what
The Rise of Skywalker today,
actually is.
And I would even make an argument later on that the reason The Rise of Skywalker is what it is because of The Last Jedi and its failures that require The Rise of Skywalker to be that mess of a movie.
But then you get into like I think that's actually might be fair.
That's not even there are so many other points I want to make.
There's going to be a point where I have to talk about what's not good about the movie.
Yeah.
And I have thoughts about that.
Sure.
But we'll get to that
later.
Yeah,
so I think, remind us, what is the structure of this exactly, Ellen? Those were wonderful opening statements. Those were just the opening statements, everybody, from Chris Towers.
Oh, wait, I have one other thing to add.
Yes, go ahead.
One, Adam Driver is incredible. And
Amazing.
he is, I mean, he's I think maybe the most interesting young actor of his generation. He's just everything he does is great. But in this movie, he is just like
the number one thing he
by
does.
far the best acting performance in any Star Wars movie, I think.
The best thing about this movie to me about Adam Driver is like he gave our PL Plus community the more GIF that we use anytime we make a new channel. We say more channels and we post in Adam Driver. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, that scene, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but I love that scene too. But also, say whatever you want about the characterization and the arc of Luke Skywalker in this movie, which I know a lot of people have problems with.
Yeah.
I personally love it. I think it's really moving. But Mark Hamill, I know he didn't like the way the movie portrayed Luke Skywalker.
He's
in
come
a lot
out
of ways.
in interviews and saying that it doesn't feel like it's Luke.
It is. I'm so glad this movie exists, if for no other reason than we got that Mark Hamill performance. Because he is I love his performance in this movie. There's so much pathos to it. There's so much there's the whole Rashomon element of the retelling of Kylo and when Kylo went bad and all that stuff, and the different ways he's acting in the different ones, and just the acting that he's doing with his body language, and it's really I love that was the last performance he gave.
And for those that maybe forgot about The Last Jedi, what Chris is describing is the telling from Luke's perspective of that scene at the bedside with Kylo Ren, where he's pulling out his lightsaber from Luke's perspective first, and then Ben's.
Yeah. Well, from the first one, Luke doesn't have a lightsaber,
right? And then there's one from Kylo's perspective, and then there's
Luke
a real truth-telling one.
Yeah.
From Luke's perspective a third time. So we did it 3 different times, different ways. Very well done.
Yeah, it's a reference to Kurosawa, right? Rashomon?
Yes.
I'm like a fake movie guy. I've never actually seen that movie, but I know that's what it is.
There you go.
Different stories told from different perspectives, or the same story told from different perspectives.
Which I always love. Yes.
So Ellen, how is this going to progress moving forward?
So after this, you're going to give your opening statement.
Yes, statements.
Apparently. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I only play a lawyer on TV. I don't really know what it goes like, but it seems like an opening statement can include various. Yes,
I mean, look, I almost suggested we just do a Lincoln Douglas style debate.
Oh, I understand. I figured it'd be fun to have.
In which case, it would have been an hour opening statement.
Right.
I could have kept going.
I mean, I know you can.
You saw my list of good.
I mean, you see the. Okay. Yeah.
And then subsequently, Chris will talk about the things that are bad in the movie, even though he likes the movie, and Nick will talk about the things that are good in the movie, even though he does not like the movie.
We have to give each other space to breathe. I feel like that's important with us, and we will then just digress into whatever else happens.
And I also think, the web of our life is a mingled yarn, good and ill together, and so it's good to acknowledge that something is not wholly good or bad.
Exactly what I was going to say, too. Perfect. Lisa, no, well said, Ellen.
So, your opening statement, counselor.
Oh, boy. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Genders.
Yes. Thank you. This movie, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to work you through the anticipation, the perspective of a fan of Star Wars going into this film, and then breaking down how every step of the way it looks at the Star Wars fan and says, I do not care about you. It is going to say, we are just going to make a movie that we think right now is a movie we want to make. Star Wars doesn't matter. I would actually say to you that this movie, without any Star Wars input, is actually, you know what? There are some really good things that they do. But if I'm going in there after watching The Force Awakens, which you can say whatever you want about, one thing it did do is it did create intrigue. And it did ask us questions that we wanted answers to, and it pushed it in a direction that the second and third, this entire trilogy, would have this wonderful arc and would have some stories that we can follow and be excited about. This film, when I left it, I thought, I have nothing that I'm looking forward to now. They took every element that I would have interest and said, nope, not to this, not to that. I don't care about this. In so many ways, I look at the characters at the end of The Last Jedi, and I think, what has changed? You could literally make the next film, which they actually tried to do by ignoring all of the second film. And to me, as a fan of look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm a bigger fan than you are, Chris.
I mean,
I've watched every
You're
film,
not wearing
of
a
course.
Star Wars shirt.
I have watched every show as well. And I watch it from the perspective of this is really fun. I enjoy the world building, all the epic space opera. That's not even a space opera. It's just an epic adventure that is Star Wars. The discovery, the world building, all the different places, all the things that they can do. The episode 4 is titled A New Hope. It's all about finding the good and chasing that and coming out on top because of that. That's what it's supposed to be. This movie tried to be something that just the universe is not. And it goes so far. And I'm going to make it a true opening statement because I want to evolve as it goes through this entire live stream and podcast of what all those elements are. But there are so many moments, and even some that you've already mentioned, that just are a slap in the face to any sort of attachment that you had to Star Wars.
See,
and it's just so frustrating that they would establish things that, oh, wait, but I'm trying to have some sort of belief into this world existing, and you're saying, oh, no, anybody can just fly a cruiser into giant ships on a kamikaze mission and blow them up. And why wouldn't anyone that is getting fired at, I'm a small ship onto a Star Destroyer, just turn around and just bam, there it is, without even a pilot in it. All of Star Wars now should just be random ships trying to go at each other to the point that no one is on ships anymore because it's that easy to do. This has never been done before. They even show scenes of being in light speed, not actually just zooming through planets or whatever. It's inside a wormhole. The whole idea of this is not established. You can take a look at the screen and go, okay, you know what? Maybe there's some idea of like you have to only be this close, and then there's always a little crawl before they go off into the wormhole and everything. Nothing is established, and there are so many times in Star Wars before that we've had these close battles that this has never been done because it's just assumed, because that would just be way too absurd and different of how the world would work. There are many examples of things like this in this entire film, and it's insulting.
I'm so glad that you brought this up because, as a matter of fact, a follow-up question that I had for Mr. Towers was, does the Holdo maneuver not obey some of the Star Wars universe's physical laws?
So,
hi.
Two things. One, I just have to point out
yes,
that you are making the no true Scotsman fallacy when you're saying it ruins anything that a Star Wars fan would love, because I am a Star Wars fan. Have been for most of my life, and I love this movie. So I have to strict that argument from the record. That's not.
I'll phrase it differently than calling a Scotsman. I would say knowing the legacy of the Scottish, that this is betraying what they're known for.
Here's the point.
I am also Scottish.
You like things about it, but I would imagine as I work through this today that you would agree that the things that this movie is doing is against the essence that is the Star Wars saga.
I don't know.
Here is the point that I am inclined
because now you will know
to give to Mr. Pollack is that I agree that expectation is everything. As a matter of fact, for like literally anything in life. And that very often, like if I watch a movie that has won the Academy Award after it's won the Academy Award, I'll never like it the first time I watch it.
Sure. Yeah.
The second time I watch it, I'm like, oh, actually, this is a good movie. So I agree that if the average Star Wars fan has a certain expectation going into this film, they might have been disappointed, and that is a point that I will give to you. However, I think if upon repeated viewing you are still disappointed, I think maybe...
Well, so I don't want to take up too much time because it's your opening statement. So we can get into that question later because I think there's a lot of really interesting things about like who owns Star Wars and whether audience expectations should supersede the creator's intentions.
Yes. So,
but I do want to go back to the question you asked about the Holdo maneuver. It is established canon in Star Wars that it is not like a wormhole. You are physically moving through space when you're jumping to light speed. This is it's established in various of the canonical stories, Rebels, when they talk about the Purgles and the way that we
those are the flying whales.
Yeah, the flying whales, and that's how we invented light speed in this universe. But also, in
they're going through wormholes.
No, they're just flying through space. Because the way it works in, I think it's either A New Hope or Return of the or Empire, is they're trying to jump to light speed, but they can't. They don't have the computers not working, and they need to compute the path through space. It's sort of like how Dune handles it with the spice, but they compute the destination.
Sure,
and you can't just. And it's also in the Rise of Skywalker.
Okay, so I'll say this. I don't honestly care. You can have the point about how light speed works in space travel. The fact that that this hasn't been established until this moment without any sort of explanation, nothing, is just kind of, you're sitting there being like, what? That can't happen. Because then everyone goes, well, this is stupid because everyone would do this all the time, and there has to be a reason that can't happen. That's why it felt so just, it felt like a Deus Ex Machina, just like, here you go. Like, we gave you an answer, and you're just going to have to accept it. But like, what? But that just, it ruins everything.
Sure, but that's kind of Star Wars.
That's too far.
I mean,
that's too much.
Like,
that's too much. I mean, you can
Luke can hit a thing this big with a torpedo.
Right.
But
understood. But that's kind of like
a Deus Ex Machina.
Right. But this is very much of like,
he has magic Jedi.
You see this. Yes, you see this. Everyone should do it. There's some like basic logic of that. Besides, like, okay, cool. A Jedi is able to do that one special thing in this one scenario. Okay, fine. This is like all space travel, all Star Wars are different now.
Well, this is a point that I'm inclined to give to the honorable member from Pitcher List College, because I also remember that one of the biggest problems that I had when I saw this movie was that it felt like there were all kinds of things that had not been established as things that were in this universe that suddenly people could do. Like,
the Mary Poppins moment, as I like to call it, which is Princess Leia getting blown out of the ship, which, by the way, other ships have been blown to pieces and stuff, but you didn't see people going off into space. All of a sudden, it's all contained for some reasons inside, and they're not getting blown up. But then this one time, because they wanted to have a scene with Princess Leia going outside, they said, fine, okay, for this one explosion, we're going to make them all go away. Fine, whatever. She then floats back. And I know that in Star Wars, I can't remember what episode of something else I've seen this before, of having some force ability to travel through space or be not dead from the vacuum that is space. It still felt, watching this, especially as like, if you're making this movie and you don't know that one very small scene from that one show, it's just this, what you got to have some sense of gravitas to these events, and without any sort of introduction of like what we know that they are capable of doing, you're just saying, oh, no, don't worry, because of the Force you can float through space and survive this. And like,
it just seems so,
it was just so
like
ridiculous.
we have Anakin Skywalker falling into lava and catching on fire and surviving, and the answer is, well, the Force protects you.
Well, he fell into lava, but then he wasn't like he was submerged and then came out.
Well, no, he caught on fire.
Yeah.
He's completely on fire. That should have killed him.
He didn't fly through space.
It should have killed him. He was on fire.
He didn't literally like get blown up, go into the vacuum of space, and fly. It was things like that completely. And then there's even the Force projection at the end, okay, with Luke showing up, which I remember watching. I watched it on Tuesday, where all these notes with it. And I'll even admit to you, I liked the movie more now because I didn't have those expectations. And I thought a lot of things that they were trying to do, they did well. It wasn't the absolute atrocity to humanity that I thought it was originally. Still not great, but it wasn't as bad. Now, this really bothered me still. This whole Luke projection thing, for so many reasons. One, I don't even know where to begin. There's Luke coming in, right? And he just kind of shows up, and he's in this thing that he's never been in, I guess, or whatever. But all of a sudden, he's so real. He hands Leia the dice, I guess he's projecting to of Han. I love also the fact that he comes in through some place, and they go, oh, there must be an exit. How else did Luke show up? And that's why they go look for an exit for the most part. But That's not. They just happened to also be an exit because Luke didn't actually enter through anything. But that's fine. They have this whole fight. They definitely do it so he doesn't get touched. So he's not revealed that he's not a projection. He's not doing the salt stuff, which is another thing I'm going to talk about in a second. But just the idea that it's Star Wars, man. All we want that really dope battle. Like every single Star Wars, I feel, needs to have that true lightsaber battle. And here we are. We're in that moment. And they're just like, nah, we're just not going to do one. We're going to have this aha, gotcha moment instead, because he slices through him and, oh, he's not actually there. He's just projecting from an island. So he's not actually dead. Just kidding. He's actually dead. We're going to actually make him dead too now. It's something that hasn't really been done. There was the bridging between Snoke that Snoke did to. I thought that was actually the coolest part of the movie. I thought that was a really cool thing. Those scenes between Rey and Kylo Ren. Yes, the Force connection, the bridge between them, right?
Right. But have we ever established that people could do that before? This
absolutely
was a
not.
big
And the
problem
projection
that I
thing
had.
is also this massive, like, that's so much. That's no one. We've never done that.
That's why he dies.
Right, because it's so much energy is what you're saying. But it's also a thing of just, we just got to accept that he can do this. And it's like not really a true gotcha moment because we in no way could have been clever enough to figure it out because we never even thought that this was allowed. You know,
Right,
and
but
there's a difference between like a plot twist that is like, oh, if I just put the pieces together, you're saying, oh, his foot doesn't, on the salt. But you don't even know that this exists. Like, how are you supposed to put that together,
Sure.
And that's just kind of like, oh, we just have to accept this new thing again that you've never established before. And it's just, okay, I guess. There's no, like, meaning behind it. There's no, like, substance to it because we're just forced to accept it in this moment without any sort of buildup whatsoever.
But that's not... Is that different than...
you got to develop it. You got to, like,
than
build
Obi-Wan
it in.
going from a disembodied voice to a spectral presence.
But that's the thing,
in
though.
Empire?
That is a gradual thing, though. That's not just like this
Right, but
gotcha
so-
moment.
but
It's
so
not like
is-
it's this critical
But so
moment
is
of
this,
the film.
because it's starts with Luke contacting Leia telepathically from hundreds of miles away.
And that's happened in multiple times.
in
So that's
Empire.
established, yeah.
Right, and so then it's just kind of building off of that.
So wait,
It's building off.
Yeah, but
of,
there's a difference between telepathically speaking to each other and then looking so real, not to just one person, to everybody.
But that's the Force time is the setup for that. We've
So-
never seen that.
So
before.
what is
We've
so
never
what is
seen-
so what is the bridge between that telepathic and the physical entity existing?
It's not a physical entity.
Well, no,
It's
no,
the
I'm
same
sorry,
thing.
the illusion, I'll call it.
Right. But that's when Kylo and Rey are talking to each other, they can see each other,
Right.
and so this is just building off of that.
No, well, that to me is a different entity to me. That is kind of a internal, like, okay. So the Luke thing is an external existence.
Right.
While the Kylo Ren and Rey thing, no one else can see it.
Luke can.
Oh no, Luke.
In the last one, when they're touching hands.
Oh yeah, don't
That's
touch.
why he loses,
Don't touch. Yeah, sure. But still, it's not the like. It's there's still a jump from those two things to me because like Snoke was saying, I established those two connecting, but not this massive like the entire world can see now Luke standing there and swiping at him and everything. It just seemed ridiculous.
I'm going to agree with the honorable member from CBS College that the precedent is set within this movie for the Luke showing up at the cool salt battle at the end. However, it is only within this movie, and that's a problem that I have. And it's different than anything happening in the original trilogy because that trilogy is still establishing what are the rules of what we get to do with the Force. And now we have like an entire canon. We have seen what people get to do with the Force and all of a sudden being like, and also they can do this, but you've never seen anybody do it before. I don't know. I feel like you have to play within the rules that you've got.
Right. So, okay, moving on from this. You said one very important word. Expectations. You said before too, but subverting them. That's the thing that everyone's, oh my God, this movie, subverting expectations. It's the thing that everybody cares about. Like you have this, you think that Star Wars is going to be this. You're going to have Poe as the hero. He's going to do all this stuff. And look, I understand the feeling of like, hey, let's just make a movie that's more about actual like humanity and like of our failures and overcoming them and stuff. And that's honestly in some ways is the Star Wars film. But this is a movie that does it so much over the head of every single character is like this moral ambiguity thing, or are they doing the right thing or are they not? You even have like the true neutral character of Del Toro of who's just like, I don't know, we're all evil, aren't we? Ha. This guy made ships for both your rebels and evil. Like, what is good? I don't know.
Benicio del Toro's character definitely took like one intro to philosophy class in college.
I mean, he was, again, as you mentioned before, casting, he did a great job in the role and everything. But it was also, it's just one of those things where they set up something and they just kind of like, whatever. You know, they go in saying, cool, very Star Wars thing, which we like, is like, all right, we have a MacGuffin. We got to go and do that thing. Okay? They set up a lot of them that are kind of convoluted, but you know what? You got to find the Master Codebreaker, which I still find is a hilarious name for a Master Codebreaker. Of course, it's called that. Whatever. I also feel, by the way, that the character of Maz had signed on for this film, but then they wrote her out, so they had to include her somehow. And then they just had this little like projection thing of her for a second, and that was it.
Just sidetrack that. I want the Maz backstory.
I know, I want it too.
Like,
and I'm sure it was in here, but then it got removed.
Well, but the only part I want is like
I want the saber. I want to know why
she
had the saber.
I don't care.
She even said it in the previous movie. That's a story for another time. I can't wait.
Right, but that's because J.J. Abrams doesn't actually make stories. He just it's the mystery box. Like he had no plan for any. But whatever.
Well, that's another whole problem of all these.
I just want to know the story of how Maz and Chewbacca hooked up.
Yeah,
because that is established in the first movie.
Right.
I want to see her and Justin Theroux together.
Right.
Because that is also
the Master Codebreaker. Yep.
And I just want just Maz's kind of like sexual travels.
Okay,
that's the story I want. I want to watch that.
I'll say the travels. I'll go with the travels of Maz. Okay, from Italy to my sandwiches. No, that's a mozzarella joke. Okay. Anyway, we are gonna stay on course here with the Master Codebreaker shows up and said that the only one in the galaxy that can break this code is that person, and then they get captured. Okay. Oh, there's this other person in the cell just happenly that can also do it too. And this is the story, I feel like, of everything in this movie. It's just like there's no gravitas. There's nothing that like holds on and actually continues through the movie. It's just like, oh, you thought it was this? No, it's not. You know, like, it just constantly does that to the point that you have this entire sub-story of this movie, the subplot of the I call it Alien Italy is what I call it, this casino planet. Because that's really what it feels like.
Yeah, like a Monte
entirely,
Carlo.
right? Which is not what I want in a Star Wars film. I want to go and see, like, the coolest part of Star Wars to me is every single film, like, where are they going to go? I want to see, like, I want to see the tavern in the middle of nowhere and this random bog somewhere. I want to see all the world. I want to see all the stuff. I want to see something that feels like it's Star Wars. And what they made was an Italian casino with like a couple aliens, a funny one that puts in coins and stuff, and they just made a jail. Then they made alien horse track, so that they can say, oh, it's this is the resistance are the kids and everything that are just getting beat down, and we are the resistance fighting back. And then said this whole I mean, the worst. There's so many bad lines in this movie. One of them was, now it's worth it. I don't know if you remember this.
Yes.
This entire trip where it's essentially like the entire resistance is on waiting, hopefully that this could work. They fail, but because they saved one alien horse, now the whole trip is worth it. And it's just, I mean, I'm not against that message, but it's just so, this isn't why I'm here right now. This is just sort of forced into this film. And it just made the whole thing have this extra corporate polish from afar that just felt so fake and so just stop this. I want to see this amazing film of hope and excitement and lightsaber battles, and I want to see these cool characters that you said before truly take steps forward and develop and become something cool. I want to see how Finn really fits into the Resistance and who is this Phasma character, and I want to see him really take steps forward and show moments of his development so that maybe he is strong enough to beat the best stormtrooper out there, which they never do. They just throw him against it and just say, oh, I guess he's good enough now, and destroys Phasma. Finn is just like, I don't even know how to feel about Finn. He's just there as like comic relief as I lose my pen because I'm so enraged. Now you have Poe, who is supposed to be the hero of this. He's this wonderful, amazing dogfighter. You're the amazing Ellen Adair for picking up my pen. And you have this like fun moment in the first one. He comes in his dogfight. I'm the best fighter out there. You're awesome. You're excited for him. And what did they do? They turn him into this. I mean, yes, he is acting terribly. He should have more respect for Laura Dern. He even says his first comment is like, oh, not what I thought of. And it's like, screw you, Poe. Like, that's not cool at all. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm even like, Laura, you got to know that, like, you just got to say that you have a plan. You know, you got to just
But that's not how. But that's
I
not
understand.
How, that's
but
not how.
I understand this,
it
but then
actually
it's
works.
also the message of like you have to obey me and like listen to me, which is
Yeah.
kind of what the resistance is against. Is like it should be just communication of in any way here, especially considering it's not like Poe. Look, I would much more understand it if Poe was just some soldier or something, like some random one. He was commanding rank, and then just like right before got demoted. And I'm so conflicted about it because yes, I want to like see this and be like, damn straight, put some like arrogant man in his place like this because this sucks a lot and happens all the time. On the other side, I'm like, as I don't know, in places that we've all been in like leadership roles, and you know, like in front of you, you have a bomb who's gonna do something if you don't like do something about it, and all you need to say is like, hey. You should trust me. Like I have a plan.
But he wouldn't.
That's all.
But that's the thing is he wouldn't have.
Then I would feel much more justified about all of this. I agree with you that Poe probably would still do something, but I want to hear that.
But within the context,
what happened in the film is that everyone in that theater was not upset at Poe, was upset at Laura Dern, and that's what's messed up.
I agree.
That was the problem.
That communication is important, and that
Sure.
instead of telling that story,
Right.
they decided that they were just going to kind of like. I hate it when it's clear that the storytellers want some eventuality and they sort of work backwards from that thing, and people don't behave like people would behave in order to
Right.
get to that point
And-
that they want to get to. And I think that this is.
but I do think Vice Admiral Holdo.
I'm sorry, it's Laura
We have
Dern to
to
me.
show-
It's just love
I
Laura
mean,
Dern.
That's the thing is that like
Laura Dern is great.
you dislike a movie with Laura Dern. Kind of seems like you're wrong.
That's okay. That's a weird point, but all I'm trying to get at here is I'm just so
I take
frustrated.
the point.
But-
I'm just so frustrated that you had this great opportunity to make everybody get behind Laura Dern. And in the quick moments, you had reasoning for us to, be on Laura Dern's side. And then all of a sudden, you made it so that the entire theater was against her. And I'm like, no, that's exactly not what you should have done.
If it was trying to tell a feminist story, it undermined itself.
Right.
That's
Yes.
fair, but I also think like within the context of the story, you do have the fact that they are being tracked through light speed, something that like they don't have any, they don't understand how it's happening.
Oh my God.
And so what they might think, what they could
sorry.
fairly think is that there's a mole, that there's someone communicating
right.
there. And so within the context of the story,
There's no way she thinks it's
it
Poe.
makes sense. No, but
That's
it
all
makes,
she needs to do.
but
Just
it
come to
makes
the side for a
sense.
second because I don't trust other people. Hey, I have a plan. Please, you gotta trust me with this, okay? I've been this commander before, and that's all you need to do. That's it. That's it.
But Poe has earned that treatment through the movie so far. At that point in the movie, like he has just gotten their entire bombing wing destroyed. He's gotten dozens of people killed for effectively no reason, because like it's setting up that while sacrifice is important, and I think that's ultimately what Holdo's story is about, is that she sacrifices herself.
Right, with
when it becomes
disobeying the
when
laws
it's
of the
worth-
established
when
physics
it's
of
worth
the universe.
doing.
Yes,
when it's worth it.
right.
But Poe is just doing it to do it, and he doesn't care because he got away with it.
Look, I'm not. This is kind of what I'm trying to get at. The story itself of saying like, hey, this person who sees himself as a hero is always like, I'm so arrogant, I'm going to be amazing all the time, and putting him in his place. I'm for this, but it's not the Star Wars film that we all came to see. This is not like, I'm not there for that journey necessarily, right? I mean, if you want to say like, hey, you know what? I think it's important that we establish Poe as this, has his development changes and everything great, but I don't want to watch a film of Poe losing. That's not what Star Wars is. I want to see the Death Star blown up. I want to see him go on a dogfight in, wherever Maz was, where that planet was. That was dope. He comes in, swooping in, firing this, firing that. His first introduction is one of the best scenes of the entire trilogy, which is where Kylo Ren shows up, freezes the laser beam, has all this intrigue. You get Poe right away. He escapes, all this kind of stuff. Like, he gets captured, where saves the other person, Finn, I think. Like, it's great. It's a BB-8. That's what I'm thinking of. It's fantastic. And, like, you want to be rooting for this so much. And it's just more failure. And this was a movie. I mean, that's what it was. It was just all this movie of failure because it's important to understand that they're not going to always win, and that's great.
But that's not, one of the thematic messages of the story.
But it's without, like, there's
the greatest
it's crazy
teacher
to me.
Failure is.
Yes, I know, but you're not going to Star Wars for failure. You're going there for some hope. You can have some. You're supposed to have some failure. You have to. There's no good story if it's just full success. But this is constantly just
I think you are holding
everyone all the way through doing these pointless endeavors that just feels like, what happened?
You are holding this story to a standard that you are not holding other films in the series to.
Okay, are you talking about the Force Awakens and
the Empire?
Now, the Empire does it
Empire
right.
Strikes Back is all about failure.
Absolutely.
They get their ashes kicked throughout the entire movie.
Yes.
Like, that's all the movie is.
Right.
It starts, I mean, it's a very similar arc for Harrison, for Han Solo. He starts out in the first movie, he's this trigger-happy flyboy, fuzzy... Oh, what's the thing that Leia says to him? I can't... Something nerf herder.
Yeah, it's a nerf herder. Yeah, that's right.
And he's like this awesome, cool character who, like, does all these cool things, and then at the end of the movie he's frozen in carbonite.
Right, but that's cool. Okay, so there's a way of, like, there's failure and hope is kind of the whole thing of this, and even goes into Luke, which is just absurd to me how you took the one person who's saw good in Darth Vader and turned him, and what you decide to do with his plot is to see a kid who has darkness in him. And instead of having the good faith of saying, right, I see good in evil, he wants to kill the kid. And it's just so disingenuous to who Luke is. This is the symbol of the film. Fine. I'll even say, fine, let Poe fail, right? Because you know what? He needs to go through this process and then he'll come out the other end even better and it'll be amazing. You can't have Luke be the centerpiece of failure in this film. That is just not... It's just not believable to me. And it goes against everything we've taught. All the character development of previous films is thrown away. Even better example, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren at the end of the Force Awakens, he has this scene, of course, where it's this really well shot movie, and I'll give you absolutely, it's a visual feast. My God, it's gorgeous. The entire thing. We'll get more into that. That shot on the bridge with the light coming in. He's in the light. He's in the dark. The absolute recreation of Obi-Wan getting killed by Darth Vader, that is that scene, essentially. That is the moment that Kylo Ren turns. He makes his decision, right? And even at the end of that, Snoke recognizes it, says, great, and he needs to finish his training. Sure, he got destroyed in the side, and then Rey duels him, whatever. But we're now excited. Okay, cool. Kylo Ren now is starting his ascension. But what happens? They say, oh, right, we were at this point of ascension. No, screw that. We're now going to have him not kill his mother. We're now going to have him have all this teetering again, as if he isn't, as if he needs to make this decision again, which, no, you just established one thing, and now you're saying, no, the characters, forget about the development you had before. We want a new story of this, which is essentially what happened, because J.J. Abrams had a rough draft script of this. Ryan Johnson was just like, nah, and rewrote the entire thing.
Which, given J.J. Abrams' history, the right decision.
Given the history of this movie, the wrong decision. But it's just the fact of, like, it goes into my initial point. You show up to this theater with all of these things set up, with all these established characters and developments and everything going all these directions, and this movie is just like, well, I don't care. I'm doing this other thing, which is why I'm saying, as a separate owned movie that isn't Star Wars, this could have been great. It's been fine, but it's just not the movie it should have been.
I would like to make a ruling, which is that I am going to give a point to Chris, because and of course, though I am trying to be objective, I have my own opinions about what
absolutely
is good storytelling, and I think moral ambiguity in characters is a good thing. So I'm going to give Chris a point for
not
Poe
when it's
Dameron.
Everyone.
However, I'm going to give a point to Nick for the character of Luke Skywalker, because I believe that moral ambiguity is good in general, but I think also we need to be somewhat consistent, or a little bit more explanation as to why somebody has departed so much from things that we thought of as core character traits.
Isn't that the part that's established in The Force Awakens?
What part?
Like, J.J. Abrams is the one who cut him off from the Force and put him on a rock. You've got to come up with an explanation for why Luke Skywalker, of all people, would cut himself off from the Force, abandon his best friends and his sister in this fight that he's believed in for his entire life. And you've got to come up with a reasonable explanation for why he would be willing to choose to do that in order to get there. I'm not saying this was the only right choice, but I think it is an interesting choice, and I don't think it betrays the character, because I think Luke Skywalker is still a human being, and he's still, like, we're talking a 30-year jump between the last time we saw Luke Skywalker and this story. A lot has happened. Clearly, the things he was trying to do at the end of the Return of the Jedi have failed. He hasn't reestablished the Jedi Order. The Jedi, nobody thinks they exist. Nobody believes in them. Because like even at the beginning of A New Hope, Luke knows who the Jedi are. He knows what a lightsaber is. By the time we get to The Force Awakens, people like Finn is like, it's real? Like that's actually like, and this is living memory. And so clearly a lot has gone wrong between the end of the Return of the Jedi and the start of The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi for Luke personally. And so he's not the same person.
I'm not in disagreement with this.
Like he has to be disillusioned or like something. Like I guess some of the theories before the movie were like, well, Luke's off building a super weapon. And it's like, no, that's not the story. Like,
right.
That's not how this works.
Yeah.
The good guys aren't the ones coming up with the super weapon.
Right.
And you can say that like resetting the whole story and saying that everything that they fought for against the Emperor was for naught, and I think that's a fair critique of The Force Awakens, but for Luke to have reached this point, something has to have happened to him. Something has had to have gone wrong. And I find the idea of him failing in that way, given who Kylo Ren is, like, I find Kylo Ren to be such a fascinating character in this story because this movie in particular really establishes that, like, he is the product of people failing him primarily.
Sure.
He is a product of, like, he's dealing with, like, PTSD in this movie. Like, clearly the way he reacts when Luke shows up on Crate is not just, I need revenge or I don't like, it's like he completely loses the ability to think rationally. And it's because, like, he is a victim of, like, in many ways, like, abuse. Like, he suffered clearly abuse from his parents who neglected him and sent him off and didn't really seem to care all that much. And he's a victim of Luke trying to, like, at least considering killing him from Kylo's perspective. And so that all, like, I think it all tracks. It's not to say that you have to agree with that characterization or the way it worked or any of that, but the idea that it is completely out of character, I think removes the potential for Luke to have grown as a character. Like, Luke is not
You
all
can establish
good
this.
or
You
not
can
all
do
bad.
this without Luke bringing up a lightsaber to a kid. That's what I'm trying to get at. It could be as simple as, you know what, he tried as best as he could as a Jedi to convince Ben to see the light. And he just kept falling into darkness. And eventually there became a moment when Ben just fell that was not Luke actually pushing him that way. That was actually like just Luke not being good enough of a master. And the fact that you can still have all of his failure, his own inner hatred, because he gave him the tools to essentially turn to the dark side, right? Without Luke actually being the one that raises the saber and does the act.
But that's
you can
to a certain extent.
But that's the point that messes me up. You're saying you need to establish what the failure is, and the failure could be as simple as, look, I trained the next Dark Lord or whatever, you know, and that's very sufficient and does not betray Luke. This betrays Luke, and that's the problem. I feel like that perspective, and I like, that's fair if that's the way you view it, but I think it forecloses the possibility for Luke to grow as a character from the end of Return of the Jedi. And growth as a character is not always good. Like, Luke is clearly, like, broken by the way he failed Kylo in a way that I find really compelling, and in a way that forces him to grapple with his personal failings, but also the way in which the entire Jedi Order and the way that they work failed. Like, the whole Jedi Order
is, like, if you actually think about it, like, they're essentially kidnapping children from their parents and forcing them into a religious cult where they can't love people and they can't, like, have no attachments and all this stuff. And it's like, we recognize in the prequels the failings of the Jedi.
Right.
And
I mean, with
Luke,
Ahsoka and everything is amazing if you watch Clone Wars. Yeah.
And Luke,
Ewan McGregor's fine though.
I mean, he's like incredible throughout. It's like incredibly campy performance. He's just like having a ball. It's phenomenal. But Luke is the only character within the mainline stories who acknowledges that failure of the Jedi. Even in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan is still talking about, and it's like, no, this is like this whole hermetic lifestyle and like it goes against what it is to be a human, and that is also how he fails Kylo. He fails Kylo in many ways. And yes, the breaking point is that, as he says, for a fleeting instant, he thought about doing this thing. And he didn't, and it passes. He says it passed as soon as it came. But that was that failure of not even doing it. He wasn't going to.
I don't even
in the story.
I don't. I never even believed
to.
that though. I mean, you can't just all like the fleeting thought. I mean, literally look at the situation. He is standing over his bed with a lightsaber.
Yeah.
That is not a fleeting thought. I remember hearing that and thinking this is laughable because you literally woken up, walked to his bed, stood there, and then brought out your lightsaber. That isn't just like. If it's a fleeting thought, it's like you're in bed, you think about it, you go, wait, no, never mind, not going to do that.
Well, but he goes there.
He do the whole act.
He doesn't go there with the intention of murdering this child. He goes there because he started to have his suspicions.
That's a developed thought.
He reads into
that's
his
not
mind.
just like all of a sudden him in the moment of weakness doing this. This is a push towards this completely. And again, it is so. Everything that we know about Luke, once again, thrown out like the lightsaber at the beginning of the film. Sorry, do not pick up the pen, Ellen. No, she's not. But even that thing right there was just a full establishment. Like, hey, everything you expect right now, gone. And sure, as I said before, and we're gonna go into the good parts and the bad parts. I guess that's we'll do that
at some point.
Yeah, that's one good thing as a film separate of Star Wars. But I mean, even one other element I do want to mention about this is the whole plot, as I talked about before, with all the places they go and do and things. That's what I want them to do. They center the plot around two ships trapped in space and not going anywhere. And that to me is just, that's not, I don't want to watch a movie of two ships' bridges debating between each other. What are we going to do? That's not, what are you doing? You have all this, you have the best world building out there, arguably. And you decide to center your plot around two ships in space. So what do they do? They say, you know what? No, hold on. We have to have some event. We can't do something. So they do the whole crate thing, which is great because essentially they said, all right, we need to make this look cool. How can we make this look cool? So we'll have like white coming up with red underneath. Oh, that won't make any sense. So we'll have one guy in the trenches go, salt.
I love that.
It's the funniest, most ridiculous thing ever.
Dude. I want that dude's story. I want to know what led him in his life to be like, I'm gonna lick this.
He got a phone call from Disney to tell him to do it because they realized that no one knew what was going on with the red. Is that blood? Is that what? No, just don't worry. It's salt.
It's just like an under 5 to just like taste the thing.
Oh, you're right. They don't get paid as much if they just say one word, right?
That's true.
Oh no. So, I mean, I can just kind of see that whole thought process. And say, you know what, fine, we'll have this subplot. We'll let them escape somehow, even though they're tracking everything. But fine, we're going to have this one thing. We're going to go to the Italian casino, alien planet thing. And that is just, I mean, it's also even how the whole process works. If you don't follow this, you don't remember it, you have Del Toro who shows up, says, don't worry, I can get you out for a price. Because, of course, I am the absolute neutral party in this. I have no politics involved. They finally get out with all this chasing of a CGI alien horse through this whole thing. Okay, whatever. They escape. Then they go to, they happen to get into Snoke's destroyer, I think it is. Mm-hmm. And then they go to the tracking thing. And the only reason that they're caught is the most like basic thing of the fake or the discount BB-8, so the evil BB-8, I should say.
I believe he's BB-9E.
Okay. Does that stand for 9E is evil, I guess? I don't know. It should be 666, and then sees them
They don't
and catches them,
prescribe to your
which is the most. Which is, I mean, if you've seen any sort of Star Wars plot or at any time, it never is that simple. Of just like, we need them to get caught. Fine, we'll have just like the discount BB-8 catch them or something. You know, it felt so just. Oh yeah. You think all the things of Star Wars that like they go through and they do this successfully, like, no, we're just gonna make this simple answer of like, oh yeah, BB-8 saw them, like they're done, that's it. You know, it just felt so, once again, anticlimactic and just, all right, am I watching a movie or am I watching like a drama or something? Am I watching a Star Wars film or just, it was endlessly these kinds of things where the entire subplot is worthless. There's nothing gained. The only thing that they actually impacted everything is that the thief then said, oh no, they're escaping to the Crate Planet in cloaked transport ships. As if they wouldn't be looking for cloaked ships anyway, that they would obviously try to escape the thing that they're tracking the entire time. It just meant, all right, I guess, okay, so yeah, cool, yeah, we got to get that fight scene, which was great, looked beautiful. But it's just this endless, like, it just felt like it was wasting my time. There was no intrigue. There was no true development forward to the things that were all set up. It's just, here it is for the sake of it existing, and deal with it.
I disagree with that.
I just want to say I think I'm giving you a point on two ships locked in space talking to each other. Not interesting.
Sure.
And like lack of development of some key storylines.
See, but
giving you a point.
What I will say is,
appreciate it, Ellen.
I just have one final point,
Sure.
which is, but if you don't like the casino planet, like just don't take a trip to Vegas. Like I think that they, like it is validly another planet. Like I get that you would rather visit a
but why
bog
couldn't
or
they
desert planet,
just something that is not so human? You know, like you have like the
but there are planets that are that way, right? So there isn't there like one planet that's like the whole thing is a big city. It's like the
but
capital.
that's cool. That's really like this big sci-fi
right, but
expression.
then there's one
is
that's
just
Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Don't go there. I don't like Las Vegas.
Yeah, like,
I'm not going to go there either.
I wouldn't want to go to
it's
Monte
another
Carlo. Doesn't have any.
It's another example
appeal
of
to
this
me.
not being like true Star Wars. They're trying to make it more like that human drama, and that's like that's just not what I'm here for. You know?
I mean, they've got like a chess game.
Yeah, but that is that's just a game on a board of like monsters attacking them and stuff.
It makes sense.
It feels alien. This thing
makes
felt like
sense
a human thing that like Bender shows up at or something like that.
It makes sense that in a world that's in a universe or galaxy that still has essentially runs on capitalist ideals, it would make sense that there would be haves and have-nots, and that the haves like that. That seems
agree
like
with this.
that is a basic thing that has existed throughout all.
But
of
make
humanity.
it. I guess what I'm saying is make the whole environment of it. Obviously, there are going to be casinos. There's going to be gambling things. But this just felt like, Las Vegas. It didn't feel as of a true, unknown alien experience. It just felt like a casino that happened to have some aliens in it.
I think it's fair to say that like there are quotidian alien things as well.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm giving Chris a point.
I don't know what that word means. Can you explain it?
Quotidian, like daily, like stupid.
Yeah, like the universe has accepted that or the Star Wars canon has basically accepted and acknowledged that like Star Wars is to a large extent just the way like the universe exists within a world where it has aliens and they're all basically just doing human things. Like you have in A New Hope, they're on this alien planet and they're surrounded by aliens and it's so exotic. And what do? They go to a bar.
Right.
That has a band playing.
But it feels like not anything that's here.
No, it feels like a bar. They've got booths. Presumably they've got like
but
mozzarella
the environment
sticks.
of this, it is very like the whole the essence of the cantina is just, oh, whoa, this is okay. This is what it's like here, That, again, that really felt like a casino, human casino, with the master code breaker hanging out, just being, all right, cool, I'm playing some craps, with like a couple random aliens.
I think it's just that the cantina is cool and the casino is not cool. Like, I think that's the problem.
All right, fair enough. Well, I will also even emphasize just even the landscape around this just looked like villas. And it wasn't like this sprawling, really amazing and like, oh yeah, right, sci-fi cool adventure, thing. It was just like, oh yeah, this is Italy.
Yeah, is it Monaco? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Maybe it's that. I don't know what I'm thinking exactly.
Yeah, I think it's like supposed to be like Space Monaco or whatever.
Right.
Is Monaco?
Sure.
Is that like a gambling city? I don't know.
Why not?
I've never been.
Why not?
I've never been to the South.
We
We
should
should
go to the cantina.
We should probably move to segments at this point. There's my opening statements.
I have just one follow-up question for you.
I got cut off after 20 minutes.
In the way that
How long did I go for?
in the way that I had a follow-up question for Chris, which is you're saying that there is no hope at the end of this film.
So little film. I mean, yeah.
But
I'm gonna go with that.
I think, again, of the things that I remember, one of my favorite things about this film is this notion that, like, perhaps many people could have the Force.
Love that. The democratization of the Force.
Exactly, the democratization of the Force. And does that not give you any, like,
so
soupçon
I
of
want
hope
to
at
make
the end of
sure
this film?
you're essentially saying the kid at the end who then
Well, not just
hovers
that.
It's
a
not just that.
broom.
It's also the fact that it's like, who knows who Rey's parents
Yeah, like that.
were, right?
I
Well,
love that.
no.
part.
Okay, hold on.
Ray
on.
just being nobody
no.
is
no.
so
okay.
good.
So you remind me one really bad thing about this. They have this moment of really so good. But this is a good segue into the good things.
Great.
Which is they have this awesome moment where, okay, so here comes Luke saying, okay, well, we're going to train, which, by the way, I didn't see like any actual training with Luke and Rey.
I mean, the only training we ever see in any of the Star Wars movies really is just Luke with the thing.
No, look at Empire Strikes Back. All of those things. Like,
Oh,
let's see
yeah,
him
he is
so
doing,
much of it. He's on headstands
he's doing
and
CrossFit.
And he's doing like trying to move the plane. And he needs to
Yoda
go in.
digging his
He has to
claws.
go in and face Vader. All this stuff is actually like true. I understand your development and being challenged and moving stuff forward. And like with Rey, she literally just sits crisscross applesauce and then has to field the island. And that's really that's it. That's all that Luke trains her as. And also now she's more powerful, which makes no sense to me, but whatever. It's this great moment. And yes, this is where I'm embracing more ambiguity because I thought this was a really good moment for Rey to come out shining, which is where she's feeling the island. And what does she do? She gravitates to the dark hole, right? This, oh, don't go there, Luke. Fear in his eyes. Oh no, she's gravitating to the dark point of this is great. I cannot wait to see what is inside that dark pit. I really hope they really stretch this out, how much she's going to gravitate towards has not. They don't touch it until 20 minutes later, where then she is just there. And what is it? It's literally that she is nobody, that she's alone. And it's a mirror pretty much saying like you're looking for answers of this and all you get is yourself. And that's it.
No, but you are the answer.
And that's but well to me it's like that is such a we already kind of knew this. We're already there of it. We're like wondering, okay, cool, we want it to be all these other things, fine. It's kind of like saying none of all your theories. No, she is nothing. And it's like, well, that's not like the true darkness that we want. Yeah, I understand the darkness of feeling alone, trust me. But when it came to like the intrigue of what this thing was and her embracing the dark side, that isn't it.
But isn't it reflecting?
That's what she's always been.
Isn't it reflecting the cave at Dagobah? When Luke goes in, he comes across Darth Vader, cuts his head off, turns out it's him.
Okay.
Like it's the same idea.
Well,
And
my impression of this was less of like that was more of you are Vader, and this to me was you are alone.
Well, it's foreshadowing, like one, the darkness inside of Luke, but also two, the fact that Vader's his father. Like it's foreshadowing that, and so in this way, I think it's also thematically establishing that one, she doesn't like the answers that she's looking for don't exist.
Yeah,
the answers that she's looking for about who her parents are and where she comes from.
It's so nothing to the audience is what I'm getting at. Like this is such intrigue. This is such a great place for us to like feel and get that development, and we just get nothing.
Again, the no true Scotsman of it all.
Oh man,
though.
it was so.
Because I really love that part. I love that Rey doesn't that Rey isn't part of this like.
Well,
cosmic hereditary monarchy.
Okay,
that's one of my favorite.
Two different things, though. Yes, I agree. I think one of the worst things that they did with Star Wars was establish midichlorians. I think we can all agree about this, saying like, oh no, you have to have some blood in you that tells you to use the Force, and you're not anybody can become in tune with it. Terrible. And the idea that Rey is just nobody in that way is a good thing. I don't want that to be the conclusion of this storyline. I don't want that to be the storyline of what that dark pit is. I want that to be more of like pushing her into danger and darkness and actually embellishing in this more. This is just essentially what it did to the audience members, at least myself and a lot of other people I've talked to. I understand it's not everybody, but it just felt like, oh, that's an answer and not an actual like true change of Rey, you know, and a real shift for her as a character. It was more of, oh, okay, I guess her parents weren't like Obi-Wan or
it's
something.
Playing on her. It's
not enough.
It's like when Luke goes into the cave. It's you know, what's in there, only what you bring with you, I think is what Yoda says.
Right.
And it's the same general idea. It's her insecurities. Yep. And then it's the kind of thing that could, and, you know, I think we as an audience are supposed to believe that there is at least a chance that she will turn to the dark side because of those insecurities and because of what she's looking for, which is a family, something to call her own, something that belongs to her, and that is what Kylo offers her. And, you know, when she walks away from Luke and goes to Kylo, there is at least supposed to be this flicker of, will she turn? Will she accept what he is offering her, which is clearly the strongest relationship she's ever had with a person, and the idea that she belongs and that she has meaning and that she's powerful. That is what Kylo is offering her. And she ultimately walks away from it. But I think that is thematically keeping with that storyline and that through line, which is that it's her insecurities. She goes there and says, tell me who my parents are. And she gets the mirrored reflections of herself back.
I want to establish something here. I am not against that this can be the root of her turning to the dark side at all. Like, I think that's a really important thing. You are alone. You are not, this is not your family. There's no one there for you. You have to fight to do, you know, to be something, you know, and then your own identity, having that loneliness. Absolutely. The way it was done in this film, there was confusion. There was lack of, it was such a letdown of execution, of just it's such an amazing, intriguing pull of, you are gravitating to the dark side in this pit is everything. Okay, great. It's a mirror. You're alone. Okay. And that's all it is. And there's no, like, even this next scene or something, there isn't this clash with her after. There isn't this, and it's just.
Well, sure. The next scene with her is
no,
her and Kylo's next Force time.
Well, yeah, but they're talking about, and then she goes and leaves, and that's, I understand that, but it's not this. You're not seeing like a new flicker, or you're not really seeing like a development of like evil going out of her from that. It just seems like, oh, it's just feeding into more insecurities. Isn't this truly devastating, horrible thing that it's made out to be?
But isn't the fact that she fights Luke Skywalker in the very next scene, like, there's some parts of that feel pretty evil.
Well, even that though, I think we all wanted to fight Luke Skywalker in that scene. That wasn't like an expression necessarily of Rey being evil.
But there's the point
she's
where
just upset at him because he's not helping her and he's turning his back to Jedi.
But there's the point where she brings out the lightsaber,
right? And
he kind of falls down and has to like save him, like save his fall,
right? And
you think like, oh, she might kill Luke Skywalker right here.
I personally did not feel that.
But that's the intention.
Yeah, well, right. But I guess that's kind of what I'm going at here, is that I'm not necessarily faulting the idea of this, of like, hey, this can be something that pushes her to it. The entire way watching this just felt like, what? I guess this, okay, all right, she's doing that now. It never felt like a true suggestion of Rey turning to the dark side. It never really came, it never had the gravitas of
she
this.
doesn't, and so if
but it never, the suggestion never felt real.
Does it ever feel real with Luke?
That he'll go to the dark side in the original movies?
Yeah.
No.
So what's the failing here?
Well, is that you didn't, the element of intrigue that you actually were talking about, you want the moral ambiguity is what we're going for here, and they fail at it.
Right, but I'm asking, there's
like
the
the fact that she went into that pit and did that is like, okay, if you're saying that's because she's going to the dark side now, then great. Then if that's what you're going for, then do that.
But
go in and lean into this. And to me, it just felt also not impactful at all.
This is one of the issues that I have with like the Last Jedi thing as a like cultural phenomenon is that it feels like there are critiques of this movie that if you apply them to other movies in the Star Wars universe, you can make the same arguments. And in that way, it's hard not to feel like a lot of the reaction is just you watched Empire Strikes Back when you were 9 and you watched The Last Jedi when you were 29 and your reactions to things are different. And I'm not saying that anyone who doesn't like it is just like reacting as a child. Like I don't want to make anyone's like or dislike of the movie anything other like, well, that's not fair. There are absolutely people who dislike this movie in bad faith, and they should be criticized for that. Like I'm not even
looking at you.
I'm not even like I don't think that you fall into that category. But like there is absolutely a contingent of Star Wars fandom who reacted to this movie in an incredibly toxic and harmful way.
Well, of course, and anything that acts that way,
but like in ways that were like Kelly Marie Tran, who is Rose Tico in this movie. I think she is I love her in this movie. I think she's just like
I feel
so
bad for
magnetic
her.
and warm, and I think like just like I think she's so compelling.
Oh,
But
no,
there is clearly, I think, part of the reaction to her, and again, not saying this is you, but part of the reaction, like she received so much hate that she quit social media.
Oh, I feel so bad.
I
for
think
her.
part of that is one, she's like one of the first prominent actresses of color, if not the first one in like a Star Wars, like a starring role in Star Wars. And two, she's kind of she's the first major female character in one of the mainline Star Wars movies who's not like presented as an object of desire for one of the male characters. And I think those play into that toxic. And so like you can't really talk about the reaction to this movie without that also. But that being said, like I also think that there's a visceral reaction to this movie. And then there is, and this is how humans work. I think to a certain extent people didn't like the movie and then kind of work backwards logically to explain why they didn't like it. And I think that's how anything works. Like have you ever seen the movie The Lobster?
Oh, it's a great movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah, wonderful.
I hate that movie. I hate that movie so much.
Next time.
Oh, I love it.
Next time.
Yeah, the
And
next debate.
what's his
Lobster.
the guy who makes that movie? What's his name? Yorgos.
He made the squid and
the
the
favorite.
whale too, I think.
Yeah,
or-
I just don't like his movie.
Oh God.
And
Wait,
I've
you
had
didn't like The Favorite?
No,
Oh.
not at all.
Oh.
I hated that.
Yeah,
movie.
he
I
said
love The Favorite so
for
much.
him it's the worst.
And so I like The Lobster. I might have had like more of a visceral reaction negatively to that
Thank you.
than any movie I've watched in a long time. I
Wow.
hated and I've tried to I've got a friend who really loves it, and I've tried to talk to him about it, and I ultimately realized I just didn't like it. It just wasn't a movie. Like I don't like that style, and he's trying to well, this is why you don't like it, and it's like, one, that's condescending. Like I don't like it. I don't have to justify it to you, but
Sure.
also I just didn't like it. And I could try to articulate why, but it's ultimately there's no reason. You don't have to explain why you dislike something. And so I think one thing that happens a lot with this movie is there are critiques made of this movie that if you applied them to the other movies that people really like in Star Wars would not hold up to scrutiny.
Now I want to contest that a little bit.
Okay.
Because I do think that at its core, the ideas and the intention of this film, I think, does match a lot of the other films, right? What they're trying to do and the themes that they're trying to hit and everything. I think the argument and the I don't want to say anger, but the disappointment that I have is I think the execution was terrible, and I think they did not hit the same
fair.
beats, and that's why though you're talking about the criticism of the other films. I think that's why, even though they carry a lot of the same elements, those succeed and this one fails. And really, just if you say, well, what is that execution? I can pretty much put it simply as they tried to develop so many characters in this film. I mean, there are so many characters that it becomes, the pacing gets messed up. There isn't enough screen time for enough to do good development. And the whole meaning and gravitas of everything gets lost. And when you look back at the other films, you had about maybe 4 or 5 that actually mattered. This one has like 10, even more than that. You have Del Toro, you have Rose, you have Finn on that side. You have Poe, you have Laura Dern, you have Princess Leia, you have Rey, you have Luke, you have Kylo Ren, you have Snoke. I mean, you have Hux. It's all this stuff. It's just too much.
I hope in your list of things that are good about this movie, you include Donald Gleason's performance as
Oh,
General
he's
Hux.
great. Don't worry.
He is
Yeah, he's
just-
wonderful.
I just want to say very quickly,
Yes.
I am giving Nick a point for there being too many things in the soup. I agree.
Sure.
But I am giving Chris a point on I actually think that the descent into the cave makes sense vis-a-vis the other Star Wars films. And I mean, also, I really like the fact that her parents are nobody in this film.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good
like,
thing. But that
made me so mad. Like every.
yeah. All right. So let's move to another segment.
Great. So I believe you had started to say the things that were actually good about this movie. So
Okay.
first, let's have the things that are good about this movie.
So I have it written down. I have good things. Let's see. Whatever the first scene was. What was? Oh, that was the dog fight of in space and stuff. I thought it was, in some ways, maybe these films do go a little too far with trying to inject some of the Marvel humor and stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad. It
I
wasn't,
don't, I don't love the your mom joke that he makes,
right.
but like generally speaking, I
Right. I mean, there's some fun moments of like Rey knocking a rock down and destroying the caretaker's
Love the
carriage and stuff.
caretakers.
They're wonderful. I love the carriage. Yeah, exactly. I think they're wonderful. Yeah, the porgs, as you mentioned before. You have what am I writing? Oh my lord, what are these words? New World Habitat. I don't even know. Oh yeah, it's just cool. That's the caretaker stuff. I have the worst handwriting. I am so sorry, everybody. All right, you have the salt fight, which again was just glorious to look at. Really, like just a beautiful looking thing. You have Help Me Obi-Wan showing up. I thought that was so cool. Luke's like, what do I have? It's R2-D2 and shows. That
was a dirty trick, I think is what he said.
Yeah. That was a cheap trick. It's so good. You have BB-8 exists. Yes, BB-8 is just
delightful.
I think he's the best thing of that trilogy, honestly.
I think so. Yeah. I mean Kylo, but also BB-8.
Yeah. Well, and there is that too. Adam Driver is great in this.
Borgs, is that what they were called?
Yeah, the little
Yes.
things.
I
Yeah,
love them.
so good. I mean,
When they're ripping the upholstery off of the chair and
yeah,
that
it's all that
always
stuff.
makes
They
me
have these
laugh.
fun beats every so often. They're like, all right, this is really enjoyable. This is a lot of times I'm watching this. All right, this is a good scene. They're doing this well, right? I mean, as you mentioned before, the visual feast is present, and that is a good element of this. I'm trying to not end it with a but. So, I'm trying to keep going with this. They add some. The conversations between Rey and Kylo Ren are great. I think that's a really cool thing that they did. I didn't like. Never mind. Not going to do that. Saving that for later.
Were you gonna say the part where he's shirtless? Because I love that scene.
No, I think
It's
that's
so
funny, but it's also a little
She's
too.
so disarmed.
Yes, but it's also. I mean, I think it does take a little out again. It reminded me of the Marvel thing again. It's like the too casual element that they throw in sometimes, which is I don't dislike. It's like, oh right, they have to do this because it was successful in Marvel is what it feels often. No, what I was gonna say about the Force connection stuff was something I forgot again. So we're gonna move on because I'm only gonna do positive things right now. Okay, the X-wing in the water. I thought that was so cool.
Really, really compelling.
Right? And they never. It doesn't show up again, does it?
That's I think a really brilliant piece of storytelling because that's kind of the Chekhov's gun of the movie. That's what you're led to believe.
But that's
Luke
but,
takes.
yeah,
to
yeah.
this,
But
to-
that's
But does he?
no.
So then it's not Chekhov's gun.
Right,
because
right.
The
It's
rule
a
is the gun
subversion.
has
Right.
to
It's
go
a
off.
subversion
everything
of that
is
expect.
that.
But that's
it's just
But
too
that's your
much.
expectation.
It's just so much of it. It's overwhelming. It's you with the hammer. We're not doing that. We're doing positive things. I want to hear everything that you said was positive too. Okay. Oh, and Chewie was great too. So let's see.
I have a question for you.
Please.
That I'm gonna let Chris go through the negative things first, but I'm just planting this seed for you. Is that I want to know if any element or moment from this film were a human. Like imagine that the elements and moments in this film are humans. Which is the one that you're like, yeah, I'd date them?
Wait. Oh, which element of this film?
Or moment or thing. Yes. It doesn't have to be a person. As a matter of fact, I prefer that it's not just like this character.
No, I was gonna say how the salt flies up and looks.
Okay.
Looks
all right.
amazing.
Fine. Great. You can
Looks good.
answer it already.
Yeah.
All right.
And and you mentioned the visual feast of of Snoke's destroyer going off and splitting, amazing. That goes out. I remember this in the film.
When I saw it in the theaters,
I thought it was
my
really
breath
cool,
away.
and then I was like, wait, this is dumb. But you know what? It looked really cool, and they did exactly what they're trying to achieve. The Snoke fight was mostly really good. I thought that was the best. I mean, they didn't really have many lightsaber battles in this, but like throwing the lightsaber to Kylo, he turns it on. Like that stuff was really cool, and I really enjoyed that part.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
I love
positivity.
It. Can I add some stuff I like?
Absolutely, I want you to.
So the throne room scene, just the not just the way it looks, which is just like sumptuous. It just like the really bright reds. It looks amazing. Kylo turning on Snoke in that moment is amazing. The way that the kind of red curtains that are all around burn up as they're going, and so fitting in with the.
That was funny to me though.
Fitting in with Kylo's burn it all down if you have to.
Right. You're throwing the flame whip, and it's like, oh, you see it starting behind you, like, oh, right, they needed the thing to blow up in flames. So here you go. Here it is.
But it looks cool.
It's right there. But it looks cool.
It looks cool. There's no
it's no substance is the okay, sorry.
Sure it is. It's a fire.
The substance of fire.
Want to go back to Mark Hamill's performance as Luke, because I think there are so many moments of what he's doing as Luke in this movie that I just think are amazing. The way he says when R2-D2 comes back to power or powers up when he's there.
Well, no, we all want R2-D2 to really be the power
of
the film.
R2 for president.
There is a theory that the Star Wars movies are all told from R2-D2's perspective. And that's why he ends up being a hero in so many moments where like it doesn't really make sense.
Oh, that's funny. I love random fan theories.
I love
like that.
I
still want the Jar Jar Binks being a Sith one to come true.
Would have been phenomenal.
Yep.
But the way he reacts to R2-D2 and the way he specifically says R2 is just like there's so much in that and so much history. And then the scene with Yoda, I don't know if you've ever seen the behind the scenes, but the first day that they're filming that part of it, and they've got the Yoda puppet. They actually did a Yoda puppet rather than all CGI like in the prequels. And Mark Hamill's reaction the first time he sees the Yoda puppet, he like gets really emotional.
Yeah,
and
of course.
It's such
That's
a
great.
moving, and
That's
love.
really good.
I love that stuff because you know that it's real for him.
Yeah.
You know that he's really looking back on his own life. He has a relationship to his younger self,
and
that is analogous to the one that's in the film. It's really that's beautiful.
I love that he's just like goes back to being this. Yoda goes back to being the batty old man that he is in the original trilogy, rather than like the self-serious monk that he is in the prequels. Everything that he says in that scene, just like I'll just watch that scene. I'll just like I'll go and watch the Yoda Luke scene.
But you also have Luke shouting the Jedi sacred text, and
it's great.
Well, that's what the movie is doing to us. It is burning everything that we've established of Star Wars in front of us. That is represented on screen.
Yeah, I think there is a bit of that. I mean, the theme of the movie clearly is like we need to move on from. We need to actually move this story forward. We need to not have this just be.
Yeah, and then in the end, we didn't
Luke
have
and Leia
anything.
and Han, and
the only thing that changes is that Snoke is dead.
See,
which shouldn't have happened, because I really liked Snoke and I wanted to find out everything about him and know about who this guy is. And then they're like, nah, get out of here. He's too bad. He's too clear cut. We got to have more ambiguity.
But that is one of the criticisms that I think fails to hold up if you apply it to other things in the movies. Because if you think about Empire Strikes Back and you think about Return of the Jedi, we know nothing about the Emperor in those movies. Literally, we know he is the guy behind Darth Vader, and that is it. Because it doesn't matter. And as we learned in the prequels, when we get his whole backstory, doesn't add anything to my enjoyment of the Emperor as a character in the original trilogy. Knowing that he used to be Sheev Palpatine and he had a shiny yacht ship. Like nothing, it doesn't add anything to my enjoyment of it. And partially that is the failed execution of the prequel trilogy, but it's also partially that we just don't need to know that. He's just evil. He's the evil guy, and he's the guy pulling the strings. And so with Snoke, like when you say like I wanted to know his backstory, the thing is, it doesn't matter.
That's fair. That's a very good point.
We learn his backstory in the next one, and it turns out he was a part of Emperor Palpatine's clone, and it's like that doesn't make Snoke a more compelling figure.
Yeah,
it makes him less compelling.
I don't know if I like that at all. I will say at the very least, the killing of him felt so empty and wrong. I mean, you had established Snoke as this true powerful entity of evil, and yeah, he gets seduced or like confused by reading Kylo Ren's thoughts and mistranslating them. But it felt so, once again, oh, we set you up to believe this one thing. Just kidding. He's not actually that great, and he just gets killed right now, and that's that.
But that's kind of how the Emperor dies in the last movie.
That's how everything happens in this movie. And I'm not saying that individually once doing that is bad, but when you do it the entire film, it's just, there's no, it's like, all right, you know, there's nothing, no substance behind it to us. But if you just keep battering us over the head with this.
I don't know. Like I feel like the fact that Snoke is felled by his own hubris is that's
great. But then like I'm all for that. But I mean, we haven't even gotten a chance to like. This is the first time I think there's like 2 scenes with Snoke. There's the first time when he brings him in.
How many scenes is the Emperor in?
No. Hold on. I'm not talking. Don't whataboutism me right now. I'm talking about Snoke. Okay.
Right.
Snoke right now. If you want me to have any sort of feeling about this happening, then you can't just do one scene where you establish how amazingly powerful he is, and all of a sudden be like, we're just killing him now the next time, and not, there's no emotion really tied to this. There's no like, it's just okay.
Does Snoke appear in The Force Awakens?
He does as a projection. Yeah, like a hologram projection. Yeah.
Okay, so basically the idea that he is a bad guy worthy of vanquishing
and a massively powerful one too.
But like we're reliant on this film to teach us that storytelling.
This is the first time we finally meet him.
He's the guy pulling the strings.
Right.
Like that's his whole character in the first one. He's the guy that Hux and Kylo Ren report to.
Yeah.
He's the guy, like he's established very much in The Force Awakens as he's the Emperor this time. And I think, I don't know, like ultimately, to a certain extent, this is a like an appeal to authority, but like ultimately Snoke's background, he doesn't matter to the story.
Right.
And all that stuff, and you're not emotionally connected to it.
I'm not really
like,
pushing against
Kylo
it. It's just the act of like
Kylo's
killing him like
bad.
that just felt like, I thought he was better than that. And like, I thought we would get more on this, and like, okay, I guess you wanted to, all right.
Right,
you
but
you set this up. You set up Snoke at the end of the first one that would be involved with things.
Right.
And that he is super powerful enough not to just die by a lightsaber turning on next to him. You know, and then all of a sudden,
he gets cut in half.
I'm looking forward to seeing how is his development going to happen. I want this grand moment of really a rebellion from Kylo, and it wasn't a grand moment. It was a quick moment. It really soon thereafter they got rid of him, and just felt like, wait, I thought you were going to have a little bit more. Like in the original series, you had it it was 5 minutes left of the third film that finally happened.
Sure,
and that's a true moment, you know, right? And there it is. And then what do? They do it halfway through this film,
right, but
with 2 scenes later.
Because he's not important.
Well, I mean, you're saying the Emperor wasn't important, but he certainly was.
No, the Emperor was important. I'm saying we don't know anything about the Emperor. We don't spend any time with him. We don't have any reason to like. We're not given. I mean, besides the fact that he's the guy pulling Darth Vader's strings, we're not given any reason to believe that he's all powerful. But that's enough. Just like Kylo clearly being intimidated by him.
But
is enough.
You're creating this character. You've created this. You have this, once again, gravitas assigned to this, and it felt such a throwaway moment.
Is your problem with the character that he is underdeveloped, or that the dispatching of him is that moment is underdeveloped and unsatisfying?
I would say the latter.
Great. Okay, because I think yes, it's not. We know it's not the backstory problem. You've said that pretty clearly.
While I would love to know it, they certainly have added more intrigue to him than they did the Emperor, I believe. Like, they really emphasized in the first one, made you interested in it.
Well,
but
again,
that's another thing
I'll just
that
go back to.
All right, the Scottish.
That's
that's
just
fine.
Well, no, I'll just say that's just J.J. Abrams.
Sure, but that's
Like,
what
that's
they
just
did.
JJ,
but
like,
that's still.
But
I
like,
mean,
I
that's
think
not.
part of the problem is.
You can say that that's Force Awakens. That's fine.
This movie has to try to answer questions that J.J. Abrams clearly never had any intention of answering.
That's fine, but that's still explaining why this movie had these disappointments, though. You know, you can say that it's a fault of the Last Jedi, Force Awakens. That's great. I'm not saying this isn't a debate between those two movies.
Right. No, but what I'm saying is that,
you know, so that
those questions were raised largely by one, J.J. Abrams' just inability to tell the difference between a story and a mystery.
but
I'm not disagreeing with this.
It's also what we bring into it, because the story sets up Snoke to be what Snoke is. And the story dispatches with him when the story is done with him.
There was my understanding. I mean, I don't know exactly the outline for Snoke, what that was, but we all know that there was a larger arc tied to things that was thrown away after the first movie was made. Right? We know this. We do know that the script was rewritten.
Yes.
And the second one had the outlines of this were done.
No, but Rian Johnson always made the script. He was always the prince. Even when they
I have a quote.
Okay.
About J.J. Abrams writing the scripts for each three, and then here you go, make the second one Rian Johnson, and then he completely removed it and then rewrote his own. Right?
Okay.
And this is, I mean, that's kind of the problem. I understand it's a really good point, saying like, look, you can say The Last Jedi had expectations that it just could not match because of J.J. Abrams' fault. I get this. That still does not mean that I have to go into it and be like, oh, well, I'm just going to say it's a better experience now because it was given that situation, right? You can say all the reasons for why it wasn't what we wanted it to be, but that ultimately means, though, that it wasn't what we wanted it to be.
I think I'm going to give the point to Nick on this one. And I mean, it's pretty obvious that we're going to run a little long on this one. But I think that we should move along to the other items on Chris's list.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, okay, so the throne room scene is amazing. All of the stuff that Kylo Ren says in that scene I think is really compelling. Let's see. Oh, the crate stuff when you get like the overhead view and they're crisscrossing around while the TIE fighters, like it's just it's beautiful.
Love it. The Falcon's showing up to go through this little thing. Yeah. I'm like, all right, this feels like Star Wars. This is cool.
I love one of the things that I actually do love. I think there are a lot of complaints about Poe and Finn in this movie and the fact that they like don't have anything to do or like both of them. It's what they're going through is less about plot and more about character building, because neither of them has any character in the first movies. They're just two-dimensional. They're just archetypes.
Sure.
Because again, that's what J.J. Abrams does. And so, like, clearly John Boyega didn't like The Last Jedi and what Rian Johnson did with his character. And I think from what I understand, it seems to be that he was told he's a Jedi, that his character's a Jedi, and then either J.J. Abrams doesn't do enough to set that up in the first movie, which I think is fair, or Rian Johnson just didn't follow through on that, which also seems fair. But the issue Rian Johnson faces with Finn as a character is that in the first movie, he leaves the Empire or the First Order and basically just falls in love with Rey. And that's all that happens for him.
Yeah.
And so you have to find a reason for him to matter beyond just that we're told he matters. You have to find a reason for him to buy into the resistance. And so when we get to the stuff I didn't like, Canto Bight is primary among that. That whole sequence has a lot of problems, but I do think it effectively establishes and develops his character in a way that the first movie failed to do, and because it gives him a reason to be fighting. Because when he shows up in this movie, he gets out of his little back to tank or whatever, and the first thing he says is, "Where's Rey?" And he's going to abandon ship to try to save her, because that is his only connection to this. And then through, Rose's storyline and hearing about her backstory and how the First Order had been, had run the planet that she was on, and that it was really rough, and so that's her connection to the story and why she's fighting. And through that, and through the Canto Bight sequence, and seeing the cruelty of this world that the First Order has created and all that, that's where he goes from being just driven by his personal connection to Rey or his personal distaste of Captain Phasma or whatever, to actually having something to fight for. Because that's ultimately the theme of the movie, is giving Poe and Finn and something to fight for, not just something to be opposed to. And so you see it with Finn trying to sacrifice himself at the end of the movie, and Rose
saving.
it.
Oh no! I mean, it's so bad.
That is the culmination of his arc in the film, is him going from "Where's Rey" to
I'm willing to sacrifice my life for everybody.
Even before that, like when Captain Phasma says, "You've always been scum," rebel scum, that whole thing, and then him taking that too far and saying, I need to sacrifice myself for this cause. And that is also tying into Poe's storyline, because early in the movie, at the beginning, he's willing to sacrifice their entire bombing arm to take out one ship when they are the underdogs and the enemy has vastly, where you can't waste ships when you're the underdog. And so, it's like in baseball, if you're trailing by 5, you don't bunt to get one run.
You don't steal second.
And so it's him learning to not just, you're obviously always going to sacrifice in a war. You're always going to have to, you're putting your life on the line every time you step out there. But, one thing that you see when they lose the medical frigate in the space chase thing, you see on Holdo's face how much that hurts her. How much, being on the comms with the guy as he's being taken down, it impacts her. And you see why her and Leia, and because they've been so invested in this for so long, why they're not just willing to sacrifice lives needlessly.
These are the bad parts of the movie, right?
These are the good parts. And so it's developing these characters and giving them a reason to exist in the story beyond Oscar Isaac looks cool.
He does.
No, and okay, so I was saying that because I thought the first second that this was your segment on talking about the bad things.
No,
you're only talking about the good things. What's going on here?
He said he wanted to talk about
right. I
some
forgot
more of the
about
good
that.
things first.
Yeah, no, this is, but mostly just
this all makes sense.
I'm talking about the fact that disagree with the story choices that they make, or the necessity of the Canto Bight sequence in itself. It exists to develop Finn's character and to give him a reason, and in that way, I think it's, while there are flaws with it, and I'll get to the bad stuff, now, I guess, but it exists primarily to give Finn a reason to exist in the story.
Sure. Okay.
Which he doesn't have before.
I'll say this about that. I mean, you're not wrong about hey, this is, if you look at it from that perspective of Finn, what is his existence in this? And then all of a sudden, hey, I need to have some experience with what we're fighting for. It seemed, the way they did it was just so, the horses stuff and oh, okay. I mean, I'm not against sure, yeah, I get it. The kids, they're being slaves essentially and all this stuff. I understand. If you really want me to feel that, really actually feel with Finn instead of just some anti-corporate message as Disney puts out this film, because they are, they're the good guys here. We want to make sure we send this message, is what this felt like, instead of, hey, actually witness Finn, the oppression, the true oppression of the Empire on someone, and then seeing some town going through, and then Finn saying, you know what, let me fight with them. And actually I think this is wrong and I'm going to do this. And now all of a sudden you see that there it is. I get it. Yeah. Instead of alien horses being mistreated.
Sure. I think one thing that The Rise of Skywalker at least nods to in a way that helps is like
I blocked out a lot of that movie. By the way, I was trying
movie.
to. I intended to watch it before this to showcase all the things that they had to do because of how bad this was. But I didn't get around to it. And I'm like, that's okay.
I think the rise of Skywalker's sins are its own.
Yeah.
I look forward to that debate. It's gonna be a fun one. Tune in next week.
It's a really bad movie. I don't like it.
I have a question, which is I think I'm giving you a point on Poe and Finn's character development. But what was the problem that Boyega had with this movie? From
what I understand, I don't think anybody's actually come out and said it, but you kind of read between the lines. And in the third one, they don't actually ever come out and say it because why would you? But they come out and confirm after the movie that he was a Force-sensitive person, and it seems fairly obvious that the way they sold him on joining this movie was you're going to be a Jedi, or at least you're going to develop along that path.
And it makes sense because he awakens. The whole movie's called The Force Awakens, and what happens is a stormtrooper awakens, And
like there's some hints there. There are stronger ones in the second one or in the third one, but this one clearly takes his character in a different direction than that. He's no longer...
He's just a resistance man.
Yeah, he's just a resistance fighter who's finding something to fight for. And I think that's a compelling arc within that story, but if the original intent was to have him be a Jedi, then obviously I understand why he would be disappointed with this movie. And it seems like he particularly disliked this movie.
Now, I want to hear everything that was good about this. Bad about this film from Chris.
So,
because I'm going to recognize that we are an hour and 50 minutes into this.
How long is the actual film?
It is 2 hours. 20? Yeah, something like that.
Right,
we are going to go longer than the film.
Great. I mean,
have you guys ever watched
my podcast? We will frequently talk for an hour and 45 minutes about a 7-minute cartoon. So this is.
Have you ever listened?
You guys have gone into doing like cartoon interpretations of baseball now.
We have for
that
some
sounds
time.
so great.
Have you done the Disney Casey at the Bat?
We have
cartoon?
not.
I love that one.
We have done Baseball Bugs and we have done Goofy Baseball.
Hey Arnold.
We would love to do a Hey Arnold. There's a Hey Arnold episode about
absolutely.
baseball.
Yeah.
Right.
Dino's
multiple.
What's his name?
Oh, I don't remember.
He's like Al Kaline. No, it's something like Al Kaline. Mickey Kaline, I think, is the character's name.
That sounds
He's
right.
Like
and there's
they're
Twilight too. You must have done that one.
No, we haven't.
Scene.
I have so many questions about that. Specifically,
never actually seen it.
Since they've all played baseball with themselves before, and they know how far they can hit the ball. Why are they playing the regular outfield positions instead of playing deep?
Because they can run really fast.
It's
There you go.
So anyway,
sorry, please, bring us back to the bad things about The Last Jedi.
I think the fairest critique that you can make of this movie is something that you've alluded to, which is that I think it works incredibly well as a standalone movie and fails as the second part of a trilogy.
I'm going to say better as a standalone movie.
I think it works incredibly well as a standalone movie and fails as the second part of a trilogy in a lot of ways. And I think it's not necessarily this movie's fault, but what I get from it is that like Rian Johnson loves Star Wars, and he's talked about this. It's part of why he wanted to become a filmmaker, and he's a giant fan, and he's clearly thought about Star Wars a lot, and I think that's put into this movie. He's thought about what the Force means and all that. And he has his own specific interpretation of that. I think part of the problem is they said, Ryan, you're making the second movie. And he was like, cool, I may never get the chance to make another Star Wars movie again. So I'm going to make the Star Wars movie that I want. And I think that's a failure of the Disney apparatus to not say, hey, you do have to check these boxes, though. It seems clear that they didn't really do that.
Right.
And I think one of the failings of The Rise of Skywalker is that they try to act like the second movie didn't exist, because you can't do that. You can't tell a disjointed story. Even if you don't like the choices that Rian Johnson made in this story, saying, well, none of that matters, somehow Palpatine returned, like, you can't do that.
That's what it felt, though.
But I think part of the problem...
Last Jedi is that the first movie didn't matter.
But I think part of the problem is that the first movie has zero substance. The first movie is just flat two-dimensional characters and mystery boxes. And so there's so many things coming out of the first movie that were like, how did she get Luke's lightsaber? Well, that's a story for another time. And what is the deal with Emperor Snoke? Is he really 25 feet tall and all? And it's like, but there's no actual like, there's no sense that any of that, like, it all could matter. But there's too many questions in The Force Awakens for them to all matter. And so at some point, someone was going to have to say, well, this matters, but this doesn't. Clearly, the story of how they got Anakin's lightsaber didn't matter because they never bring it up, even in The Rise of Skywalker.
Sure.
That was never so like, and so you had to make some decisions about where these characters were going and what Finn's motivation was and all this stuff. And I think that's a failing of The Force Awakens, but it's also a failing of The Last Jedi that but I guess if you have to make the choices, at some point you're going to leave stuff out. And you can disagree with the choices that he made, but I think ultimately, like, he had to make some kind of choice.
There are so many areas of intrigue you could have gone, and he pretty much just ignored all of them.
And at the same time, there are too many things in the soup. Like,
well, yeah, but he added all these things, though. These aren't just like things that he needed to conclude necessarily. All of them. He had again, too many characters, too many things.
But I think he
had an entire subplot that was worthless.
some of the things were already in the soup, I think.
Well,
yes,
sure.
But like I think the strongest decision he made was he took the strongest parts of The Force Awakens, which are Rey and Kylo and their relationship and their back and forth. I think that is absolutely the
best part of the
strongest
movie.
part of this movie is those
Without
two
a doubt.
characters. But I think it tells too self-contained of a story. Like, it almost feels like this could have been its own multi-movie thing. And we don't get the ending necessarily, but like the themes that exist within this movie are largely settled by the end. And I think that is a failure. Like the film, you reach the end and it almost feels final.
Yeah, well, right. You have no... I will say this about the mystery box stuff. I am definitely someone biased on the side of I enjoy that. I enjoy the intrigue. I want to be hyped.
Oh,
I'm
I
all
love
about
watching it.
Yeah, right. You don't... eventually you have to get to the end. I get that.
Yeah.
I, at the very least... I remember at the end of this film leaving and going, I have no... I don't have any excitement for the next one. I don't have anything that I'm like, oh, I can't wait till this happens or this. Okay, what's this going to be or that? I want to talk about it. My friends like, okay, what do you think this is going to be and all that stuff. And this literally just said, we don't care about any of that. Let's take all the stuff you had entering this film, remove it, and not add.
Well, I think
maybe there's one or two, but
it tries to declutter it.
But it made me leave this film again, just like, all right. I don't have any hype or excitement now for the next one.
But I had the opposite reaction because I liked it. So I don't know if that's necessarily like an objective failing of the movie. It's just you didn't like it, so you weren't.
To my recollection, I was hyped by this notion that maybe there was going to be a democratic uprising, like French Revolution of the Force, which obviously the reverse happened.
It's the Bourbon Restoration.
Indeed.
Is the Rise of Skywalker. It. And but I do think that is one way in which this movie fails. I think Canto Bight sequence, it just goes on too long.
Oh man,
it's muddled.
A lot of scenes in this movie just are, and even the first one, the bomber one, that goes on so long.
Yeah,
it just keeps going, and you could have ended it 5 minutes earlier or something. I remember pausing it halfway through and realizing there's another hour and change left with this film, and it just keeps going.
Yeah,
it gets overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think the Canto Bight sequence in particular, just it's all theme and no plot. I think it's the problem, and you need both. I'm a person who doesn't really care that much about plot.
If it's a compelling thing in the moment, then that's great.
Yeah, who was I? I was talking to someone about the new Spider-Man movie. I love the Marvel movies. And there's this whole conversation in the Marvel fandom about spoilers and how there was a character in the new Hawkeye episode that they had announced was going to be in the series.
Don't spoil it for people, by the way.
People got mad that this character, the person who played this character, announced it after the episode came out.
Right.
And it's that's dumb. Just grow up.
Well, we're gonna move on from spoiler talk.
Right. I'm not.
Yeah.
But personally, my perspective is like the plot of a movie only matters so much. It's how you get there. Like I had the ending of The Force Awakens spoiled for me. Somebody posted a screen grab of Han Solo getting killed on Twitter, and I saw it. And it's like, well, I guess it would have been nice to like have been surprised, but it ultimately doesn't. Like I don't care if I know the ending of a movie as long as like the
Nick is still not over the death of Han Solo.
I drank my coffee down the wrong pipe or something.
yeah.
It's great. I'm just so upset at you, Chris. That's
Yeah,
what's going on
I
right
know.
now.
It's rough.
I'm sorry. Please continue.
And so like character development and all that stuff, that really matters. And I know a lot of people just give me the plot and don't spoil anything. And I think that's a sort of silly way to view art, but it's to each their own.
Generally, I'm with you.
But I think the Canto Bight sequence fails because it's all character development and it's all themes and it's all like
It's
Can
not
you
even like
remind
great
me
character
what the
development.
Canto Bight sequence
that's
is?
the
So-
space.
So they go
Vegas.
essentially. They go to their whole thing is they need to escape the ship. They got to go find the master code breaker who has a lapel.
Red
of-
palm bloom.
Yeah, there it is. And they find him. They finally go. Okay, they're searching for him. They go here. Okay, where is he? Oh, there he is. And as they see him, they get captured by.
They get
and then
arrested
thrown
for
into
like
the
a
jail
parking violation.
or whatever. They go into the jail. So it's like, how are we gonna get out of here? Del Toro was there, and it's like, oh, I couldn't overhear you saying all this stuff. I just happened to be amazing. And then he gets them all out. And it's like, okay. And then they go running away. And by the way, before they get caught by the stormtroopers or whatever, they go and see that there's this big horse track with all these rich people yelling and screaming. This is amazing. They see the slaves, everything like that, right? Big discussion about, oh, who are these people? They're the ones that fund war. That's what they are. They're horrible people. It's because they're rich, but, you know, they're feeding into this terrible conflict that we have, right? Get captured, all that fun stuff. And then as they're breaking out of the prison, they release all the alien horses. They go ride one. They get tracked down, all this stuff. There gets to be this moment of they escape and they have their alien horse and Finn is saying, oh, this wasn't worth it.
No,
And
he
then-
says like smashing this place up was
Yeah.
worth it.
And then, smashing this place. Oh, it was worth it. Right. And then Rose goes, no, and takes off the saddle of the alien horse and slaps it away and goes, now it was worth it. Because we saved one alien horse.
Yes. So the Canto Bight sequence is the whole casino world
Yes.
Yeah.
sequence. Okay, that's just I didn't remember the name, and I
Yeah.
think I was
Well,
imagining a weird like.
I have
Hellraiser.
too many.
Well,
like,
never
yeah,
mind. I'm
like-
so sorry for going on for
Uh,
2 minutes.
No, like perhaps a listener.
But yeah,
like,
viewer
I-
wanted
that-
to know.
I think it kind of beats you over the head with the themes
Right.
that it's working with, and like I think those themes are interesting. I think they're valuable within the world of Star Wars. They are valuable in developing Finn as a character and giving him a reason to move forward in this story. But I think the execution is not great. I actually, you said you liked Benicio del Toro in this movie.
I thought him
I
as
think
I don't think his character was worthwhile existing in this, but as far as him as like in there, I was all right, this is fine.
I thought he was doing way too much.
Yeah,
I did
that's
not
fine
like him
too.
in this movie.
Yeah,
like
sure.
rewatching it last night, that was one of the things. And
Well, that's what he did. That exact sound you just made. That was his character's tick. Yeah, he would do that all the time. He
And
nailed it.
then one
blocked that out.
one nitpick that I want to go to is
Great.
Luke says, "No one's from nowhere," and Rey says, "I'm from Jakku," and Luke says, "Well, that's pretty much nowhere."
Right.
And it's like, oh, it's funny, but it's also like extremely nerdy voice. Jakku was actually the site of the last large battle between the Empire remnants and the New Republic.
That's
and
why we
so
saw those relics in
it
The
would
Force
be
Awakens.
it would actually be a pretty important place for the galaxy to know about.
Yeah. Well, this is the Marvelism coming
I
in.
like this point, but I just wish there was a little bit more commitment to your nerd voice. That's all.
Well-
this was actually
Oh,
Great,
man.
great. Yes.
Uh,
For next time.
So we
just-
should progress here.
No, do you have more points about why this movie was bad? No is a perfectly acceptable answer.
yeah, like the list for me is really short because I really do genuinely love this movie. I think it can sort of browbeat you with its themes.
Mm.
And I think there are definitely like in watching it, there was definitely like a men are stupid kind of thing that like I agree with. I think generally speaking, men have too much power in our society, and that has been true in the Star Wars society as well. And but it's very heavy-handed with the like I understand people dislike Admiral Holdo, I think, for like largely crappy reasons.
Yeah.
But it also very much like intentionally feeds into like it's sort of trolling like men's rights activists, basically. Like her character, the way she talks to Poe, like ultimately within the context of the story, she's right. But I think that is one way in which it is really heavy-handed in its themes, and it's not necessarily subtle.
Nevertheless, I have a question for both of you.
Okay.
Which is that if you were to grade this movie's lack of misogyny on the 20 to 80 scouting scale, what score would you give it?
It's lack of misogyny.
Yeah, so phrased so that like a positive score is a good thing.
Right.
Yes.
I think it did well. I mean, well, okay. I don't think they did well to Rose because they kind of turned Rose into this like.
You can take the third film. Forget it. Like we haven't seen the third film
no,
yet.
well, I mean, the story of Rose in this is kind of like, oh, she's enamored by Finn, and she's just kind of this like fangirl, whatever, and that leads her to have this undoubting, this absurd love or whatever, like then like kisses him at the end and stuff. I'm like, well, this is kind of stupid. I don't like that. I love the fact, Laura Dern, again, amazing. Leia being in a wonderful position of power and everything, and having her character have this, strength to her is great. Rey not being sexualized at all, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, look at her the entire way through. There's nothing about her that is. People force it onto her and it sucks. And
there's no
it's
slave
recognized.
bikini.
Right, nothing
moment.
close to it, which I think is good. I wouldn't say that I am the best person to ask. I shouldn't be the arbiter of that, but I would imagine looking back in this way.
It's your scouting grade.
I think
my scouting grade doesn't matter. But I would say a 70. I don't know.
I mean,
for Star Wars movies, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Well, for Star Wars movies and just blockbuster movies in general, like if every Michael Bay movie is a 20, I don't even know what the 80 on this scale would be within the context of blockbuster cinema, because so little of American blockbuster cinema doesn't like overly sexualize women. And even like the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Black Widow, like she's this strong character who's also doing like all kinds of poses where she's like sticking her butt up in the air for no reason, which they make fun of in Black Widow, and it's very funny. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like they
always do that pose.
Yeah, they're like, why do you do that pose? And so like within that context, it performs admirably, but I don't know. Like it kind of stands alone in that way in not sexualizing its female characters, and I do think that's part of the negative reaction that so much of the toxic part of the internet has to it, is that all of the women exist in this movie. All the women characters exist in this movie, not as objects of sexual desire, but like. So I guess like in that way, it's better than most things.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I feel like, I haven't seen the film recently, so that's why I don't feel like I can necessarily grade it, but I was curious. I feel like a 70 is fair, and I'm going to give a point to Chris. And then my other follow-up question for you is, if one moment or element in this movie were a person, who would you want to kick down the stairs in a recycling bin?
I guess
you can only pick one.
Benicio del Toro's character.
One of the things I praised for you.
I think. I didn't.
Well,
like
I mean,
that
he's
at all.
but he is the okay. Hold on. I'm just gonna say this. He is the ultimate representation of everything else that everyone is dealing with. He is the actual true neutral of it. While everyone else is trying to be the sine wave, he is the x-axis.
But it is also like very much like.
I'm gonna give you a point for that.
He's very much the like the drill tweet the wise man bowed his head and solemnly said, "There's no difference between good things and bad things."
Right.
Like
That's what he is.
That's what he's doing, and I find that
Yeah, I'm with you.
annoying, and I just don't like
But
his performance. And
that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fine. I guess what I'm saying is the essence of that character is what everyone is doing and like constantly through the film.
But like the
that's
movie
what
does.
I mean,
like,
sure,
the movie rejects
it's a little bit
his
better.
philosophy. Like he's the one who's talking to Finn and saying, it's just a machine. There's no, choose to be out, choose not to be a part of it. There's no, like, the good guys and the bad guys. It's all the same thing. They blow
Right.
you up. You blow them up next time. The film does reject that.
I mean, yeah, it's rejected. Okay, there's two things here. There's the one element of the military fight that is being rejected, right? That's what you're you're talking about here with Del Toro. I don't remember what his actual name is in this thing.
I have no idea.
He's just that dude that happens to know, all the codes, even though they established that no, only one knows it. Nah, I'm just kidding with you. Another expectation that has been subverted. But I mean, there's that element, yes. But he's also a representation to me of all the, just the it's not purely good or evil. Not necessarily in the form of like resistance and fighting, but actually like every decision you're making, good or evil, is what we've. Ryan Johnson's trying to say that's not this, and he's the ultimate representation of that.
Yeah,
that's all. Shall we? I mean, it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. If you are listening to this podcast and you listen to all of this, I am absurdly impressed by you. I cannot thank you enough for doing that. But we got a couple more things here.
Yeah, listening again. Remembering the film only slightly, there are a few things that I have heard in the discussion that I just want to reflect back. And one of them is that I feel like it seems clear that this movie was painted into a corner by a couple of things. First of all, it was painted into a corner by the lack of substance of the first film. Mm-hmm. But I think it was also painted into a corner by the fact that the whole template for this trilogy was basically lifted from the original trilogy.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
So there were certain problems in terms of, well, how do we make Luke Skywalker get here? Again, that problem that I have where people like have to triangulate backwards from the event that they want. Because they had to fundamentally start the universe in a similar place to the universe in A New Hope, rather than, like, let's just say, coming up with some other scenario. Yeah. Right? And that's not specifically this film's fault. No. That is, like, I would even say, like, the franchise's fault in general.
Yes.
The other thing that I thought is that, and this was also when we were discussing Kylo Ren and what has led him to be the way that he is, in some ways it has to be the failing of the older generation. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that those are all of the people that we love from the first set of movies. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, this movie is the founding fathers owned slaves movie. Like it has to do that to the...
Because of the way they set this
exactly
up.
Yeah.
It has to do that in order to fulfill creating the template from the first movie. There is no way. In some ways, I feel like the original sin is just being like, okay, well, we're just going to like take the archetypes from this one and we'll just like this time we'll make some of them women and people of color. And like, that's great. And I'm actually here.
I think this is the biggest thing that Chris and I agree on is that how derivative the first one was, and that made all of it derivative.
Yeah.
But also not just derivative. They have to not murder their babies. They have to murder their parents in order for this to work.
For this story,
ultimately something that they have done to themselves.
Yeah, for this story to exist as it does in The Force Awakens, the previous generation, their successes had to have led to massive failures. I mean, we're presented with a First Order in the first movie that appears to be as or more powerful than the Empire ever was. I mean, it's like a Death Star, but they destroy 5 different planets at once. Like,
it's just like, we'll make it more.
Yeah, you had to.
Yeah, that's actually the perfect example of being like,
you had to have messed up.
It is 5 instead
and
of
so
1.
that
Yep.
does like it kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Like it like Han Solo has to be a bad father, and like Leia, I guess she doesn't really have that, but Luke certainly, like, for him to have cut up himself off from the Force and to have been impossible to find for years, something has to have gone wrong. And so that is, it's I think that is kind of the original sin. And also I think part of the issue with this series is Disney seems so scared of making anyone upset. And
Right. They want to make as much money as possible, so that means that they don't make anything actually good
And
because
it's
they don't want to take any risks.
Well, but I will say, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I think, like, I enjoy that. I've watched those movies all too many times. I
Right.
think they're really entertaining. And it's the same corporate structure, but I think there they did have one person who had a vision and
I do
makes
not
the
know how to
decisions.
pronounce his name, but
Kevin
Kevin.
Feige.
Oh, so good.
Um,
He's like the yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
everyone
great.
can thank him for that.
And with this, though, it's like Disney was playing prevent defense. Like
Sure.
they were trying so hard to not make anyone mad, especially with The Force Awakens,
Right.
that they ended up making a movie that is very fun. It's watchable. There is nothing there. Like that movie has zero substance. And that's fine for what it is, but then the fact that they didn't seem to have a story and themes they wanted to continue throughout and were consistent with, that's where it ultimately falls apart. And you can't, like, you know, in The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson picks and chooses which of the questions from The Force Awakens he wants to answer. And you mentioned that as a critique, and I think that's fair, but he had to. And I think the way the Rise of Skywalker primarily fails is by saying,
well, hold on though. I'm gonna cut you off there. I'm sorry, but it's not that necessarily he picks and chooses which to answer. Is that he's taken pretty much all of them and said no. You know,
Right,
that's how he made us feel. It's not like he's decided to answer the thing. He's actually been like, I'm not gonna give you what you want, and I'm not even gonna allow it. You know, to get this answer, they had to retcon stuff that happened essentially in this movie to get any. That's why that's the problem.
But that's the failure of The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, well,
in saying we have to retcon stuff, but you
that's
don't.
Another issue. But
you can't undo a story that's already happened.
Right, but what I'm saying, it's not like he's picking and choosing. He's actively putting up a wall, being like, "You cannot. We're not doing that." And it's just like, wait, but.
Sure, but he also, like,
all right,
yes, but
you
we've
know, that's what I'm
litigated
saying.
that
Yeah.
before.
But that's what it is.
Where
though.
The Rise of Skywalker fails in a worse way, I think, is by saying, you know, that stuff that happened, it actually didn't. It's not saying it wasn't important. It's saying,
yeah, well,
no,
yeah,
it was,
Rise of Skywalker. That's we're not gonna.
And so that's like, but I think that's also a part. Like, whatever you want to say about this movie, it takes risks with the story that it's telling and the world that it's playing. And clearly, in your opinion, it falls short.
Okay, good. I thought you said false opinion for a second, and
No,
it certainly does fall short.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
okay. Whew. Close.
And so, like, that is, but like, it at least tried. You know, like, whatever else you want to say about this movie, it tried to do something interesting with this story.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, there's a segment of the fan base that didn't like that. I think it's probably overstated. I think if you, like, listen to people on the internet, they'll make you think it's like 80-20 dislike this movie, and it's not that. It's just very, very vocal.
Well, I will say this. This is the last Jedi debate I will do. Okay. Because this is I think I'll pretty much just say watch over 2 hours, please, or listen to this podcast, and that's all you need. That's it. I've expressed everything.
I have mostly reached the point when people are mad at me on Twitter that I like this movie. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I used to engage it and, like,
well, I mean,
and now it's just like,
we understand each other here.
You don't have to like the movie.
You know,
Me liking this movie, it doesn't mean anything to you. Like, it shouldn't.
It's like me enjoying Funky Town. I love that song. I think it's like a top 10 song. I don't expect everybody else to feel that's a top 10 song, but for me, Funky Town, top 10.
Top 10 is a strong take.
Exactly.
I wouldn't rank it that high.
I know. I don't expect you to, and that's okay.
I'm giving Chris a point for that. It tried, even if it failed.
But that's
Yeah.
not the debate, though.
is-
The debate is not about did it try. It's about we're talking about is this the
Well,
number 3
so-
Star Wars
No,
film,
no, no.
and
But
that
I
way it
think
failed.
in comparison to the other 2 movies in this trilogy.
But that doesn't. But just because it tried doesn't mean it was good.
No, but it means it was interesting.
I think not just that it tried to make a movie, but that it attempted to do interesting things.
Right. But I don't believe inherently that makes it. That's a positive quality.
I think that it results in some positive qualities.
If the end point is a positive thing, then it's good.
So
Yes.
So then
It can try to do a lot of things, but it doesn't mean that those are good things.
So then we'll move on to the
Closing.
Yes,
well-
yes. Do you have any other closing
And then we're going to say
arguments is what I
closing
was gonna say.
statement. We're going to
Yeah.
leave this without the S this
The
time.
thir-
Both of us
so
adhere to that.
the question of whether it's the 3rd best Star Wars movie. I think you probably want to work from the bottom to see where it ends up.
It's going to take a while.
And so for me, Attack of the Clones is by far the worst Star Wars
We can
movie.
agree with this.
The Rise of Skywalker, I don't know if Attack of the Clones is by far the worst movie. Rise of Skywalker is a really bad movie.
But it's a visual feast.
Right, that's what separates it.
Yeah,
The characters are better,
sure.
so that's why it's better than Attack of the Clones. I would say Revenge of the Sith is the 3rd worst, just in the Skywalker saga, not including Rogue One and Solo.
Yeah, so you're saying Phantom Menace is worse than Revenge of the Sith?
Oh no, Phantom Menace. is
yeah.
third-
Okay,
third
I was about to
worst.
say. I think we can
there's
all
a lot of
agree.
things I like about it,
Right.
but
And I do want to say I'm not gonna
You and
I'm not gonna
Greg.
really go too far into this because this is not what the debate is, So I'm gonna let you keep going.
Revenge of the Sith is
Yeah.
4th. It has some really good stuff. I
Sure.
love
yeah.
love the scene on the lava planet. Mustafar is what it's
Mhm.
called.
Yep. Yeah.
Obi-Wan, incredible. Ewan McGregor.
We've established it. Wonderful. Yeah.
So that's 5,
Blessing.
right? No, that's 4. So that's the bottom 4.
Yeah, you have Solo. You have Rogue One.
Not including those though.
Oh, you're not at
Just
all.
doing the Skywalker saga, just the main. 9.
Interesting, because I would say
Uh,
that in the top 3, I would have always put Rogue One above
think
this film.
I think
And
it's in
that
the
to me-
discussion.
Rogue One to me is the film you wanted. Is the one that you actually is like you separate everything and it's its own standalone that actually showcases, hey, this means something. This
Yeah.
matters. They did that really well, and that I actually felt connected to the characters they introduced to that and had a finale, and it was like a compact experience. So this movie kind of wanted to be, but it couldn't
Yeah.
because it's in the middle of this trilogy.
Yeah. I think that's 3rd or 4th
Seems
if
to
you
be-
include those.
Okay. So really the only contention here is The Last Jedi versus The Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi and
Force Awakens, I guess.
Force Awakens. I
Right.
think it's better than Force Awakens.
I think you made that clear, yeah.
I think I would put that 5th from the bottom. And then I would go Return of the Jedi because Return of the Jedi, it just kind of drags. That is a movie for me that drags. There's long stretches of that, like the Jabba's palace scene takes forever. There's a lot.
So fun.
It is, to a certain extent. I've
Well-
always appreciated that, like, where Boba Fett is this like huge deal, and we're doing this new series, and I'm really excited about it. I'm sure it's gonna be great.
But yeah,
Uh,
he's not really much of anything in that.
Like he gets killed,
Yeah, I'm with you there.
killed by a blind Han Solo.
I'm not gonna say it's the greatest film ever.
And so, like, I think there's some really good stuff in it. Don't love the Ewoks. There's Endor. Yeah, Endor.
Yeah, you hate the
Again,
whole Endor
kind
thing,
of
clearly.
drags a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So I would put that next. So it really comes down for me to A New Hope versus The Last Jedi. I think Empire Strikes Back is so clearly the best
Wait,
one,
hold on
but-
a second. We established that number 2 is A New Hope. We're talking about number 3 for you. But now you're going into
No, I've
maybe-
already gotten to.
What's 2? Empire
That's-
Strikes Back and
That's what we're trying to figure out. Empire Strikes Back is number 1.
I thought I thought the debate is you're
Yeah,
establishing
Last
as
Jedi
3.
is at least 3.
Oh man. Okay.
Uh,
I'm not gonna allow this to carry on this long. We're just talking about The Last Jedi here. Okay, you're saying it's 3. You're saying it's above The Force Awakens and a new Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
I would disagree. I think as far as Force Awakens goes, it doesn't set up well. It does damaging things that we've established. But as far as a standalone, as a film for Star Wars, that ticks a lot more boxes and does a lot more things of expectation and fun and enjoyment that we're all that the majority of us are looking for from a Star Wars film. It's just more of an enjoyable, well-paced, fun film, while this one is just too disjointed, as we've talked about for a while. Clearly, we agree on that. I'm just kidding. I mean, I was gonna bring up Rogue One. You just kind of pushed that away.
Well,
and
I
that's
agree
fine.
that that's
then
in
I'm
the
not going to bring it
discussion.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'd think way above. For me, it's above Force Awakens. Return of the Jedi, sure. I mean, it does have its faults, but I mean, does such a great job of concluding that series. It really does. It's to me just a more well put together film, and clearly,
I think there's just
that's the fault. I mean, okay. Are you joking? Like, we just talked about Italian casino on an alien planet being filler. Like, it's not even close to me about the filler and the problems with The Last Jedi versus Return of the Jedi. It's just way not even close to even consider that in my book. But we've talked about this before. For the past 2 hours, very quickly, the characters are too spread out, and it's just nothing is actually feeling like a strength and powerful development among any characters, save for Kylo Ren. That's the only redeeming quality I feel of this movie. Even Rey's transitions and everything just don't feel great. Luke is destroyed in this, and it's horrible. The one visual feast is the best part of this, save for the Kylo Ren stuff, but really looks wonderful and great. And everything just feels like a slap in the face of just, hey, you expected this thing, haha, gotcha. That's not going to be it whatsoever. They have so many little things that they could have fixed, as we talked about, and they just went a different direction that just made a lot of it feel just worthless. And by the end of the film, I was just disappointed and not really excited at all. The things that I was anticipating to have any sort of pull and thread to keep me coming back was just severed and done. And I remember in the theater sitting in my seat with my head in my hands as the credits rolled on screen. It's just disappointing.
I'm giving a point to Nick because I think whatever narrative problems Return of the Jedi has, I don't think that there's not as much of a storytelling clusterfork in that film as there is in
The Good Place rules. Yes.
Yes. So closing arguments dispensed with. I want to say that my tally here is that Nick has 9 points.
Yes.
And Chris also has 9 points.
Yes.
I would like to point out that one of Chris's points is how could a movie with Laura Dern
I think it's
be
a valid
bad?
point. I think it's a
And
valid
I think
point.
that one of Nick's
very valid.
points was talking about the sine curve and
Yes.
the x-axis of
His grade was clearly inflated.
yeah. I think they're both valid points. I'm just clarifying that
So-
there's a couple of points that might be questionable to some, but I think regardless.
So
we
who
come
is
out
going to
okay.
be the decider then? Well, the comments and everyone on Twitter. You
Yes.
tell us who won.
Yes. Yeah, but you can't tell us your opinion. You have to say who won
Exactly.
this debate. It's different.
Very different.
So thank you so much for joining us, friends.
Oh, and thank you guys for being here specifically in the Pitcherless studio to record this. We've never done this.
Thanks
this
for
is
having
the
us.
very first 3-person in-person
In this
podcast and
disorienting,
live
sound dampening
stream.
room.
Yeah, it's the murder room, as
Yeah,
Fast likes
it
to
is,
call it. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. But thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you all for watching and listening. But that's going to do it for this episode of Nick Pollack and Friends, I guess. And we'll see you guys.